All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday night, so you know what that time it is. It means that the Sportzwire Radio team is returning to talk all things related to the world of sports and WWE, AEW, and of course the sad news in the wrestling world, back-to-back days of the passings of Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. And to join me to talk about all of that is, of course, our resident analyst here of all things related to wrestling. That is the host of the Hockey Fan Chat, Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Tom. How are you doing tonight?
I'm hanging in. Obviously, very, very sad news in the wrestling world. And I'm watching AEW right now, and I saw the news of they had it was Wyndham Rotunda, not Bray Wyatt, but no mention of Terry Funk just yet. But obviously, want to get your thoughts on the passings of back-to-back days. Kind of, I guess, in wrestling history, I'm trying to think of a time where you had back-to-back deaths like this, and your reactions to what happened to the passings of Bray Wyatt at the age of 36 and the Funkster Terry Funk at the age of 79.
Definitely, it is a tough week for wrestling fans all around. Just going back to your question, thinking of wrestlers going past this close, the only thing I can think of is 2015 when Dusty Rhodes passed, and then a few months later, Piper passed. But
Well, we didn't get it back-to-back days. We got this
no,
back-to-back days. I mean, we've had some
exactly.
deaths. I mean, you mentioned Dusty, Roddy Piper, Scott Hall a few years ago. I mean, there's a number of deaths in wrestling history you can look back on, but to have back-to-back days, I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, like definitely two special people passing different ways. Terry Funk, starting off with what a legend he was, a pioneer who
Yep.
really made pro wrestling, did a lot of great work with ECW, WCW, back in WWE when it was WWF.
NWA, he was the NWA world
Mhm.
champion way, way back.
No, exactly. He's done a lot in the wrestling business. Like wrestling wouldn't where it be without Terry Funk. You always hear how high Mick Foley is. For me, I did miss Terry Funk in his heyday, but I do remember Terry Funk when the ECW was getting rebooted in WWE in 2006. Him and Foley
Yep.
were out, and the promo him and Foley cut. I remember how he worked Foley emotion, how he played the crowd, got everyone sucked into it. You can tell Terry Funk had something special for the world, for the sport of professional wrestling, and everything he's gone through, did for it. Just what it just, he's up top as one of the legends, and what he's built, and wrestling wouldn't be where it is today. So definitely a huge tragic there. And then going on Bray Wyatt, just an absolutely shock for him at age 36. All the talk was for him close to return,
Yeah, we
and
spoke about him a few times, and we're kind of wondering what's going on with him. We were kind of expecting at some point for him to return.
no, exactly. And for me, I was privileged enough to watch Bray Wyatt confront The Rock at WrestleMania in Texas in
Yes.
2016, and I even remember watching Bray Wyatt in house shows a couple of times, and how his work he is, the character he has, how he plays the crowd. He truly was special. I know. I before all this happened, there was some posts saying, "Oh, W should cut ties with Bray Wyatt, the problems, all that kind of stuff." But we know there actually wasn't problems. It was really health related, and all he work he's done, whether with the Wyatt family, the Fiend, the Firefly Funhouse, like it was such a pizzazz, like that
Yeah, I
creativity
said it last
level.
night on my show when we had pro wrestler here, Stud Bronson, on the Kodiak Bear, and he talked about really how Bray Wyatt was kind of one of the last great character wrestlers that WWE has developed. You think about over the last decade, they really haven't developed that many character wrestlers. I'm talking about not just professional wrestler, character wrestler. And that's what Bray Wyatt was. He was able to kind of do these different things and use his abilities in a way to invoke certain things that we really haven't seen much of. And I think that's kind of his legacy here over these past several years.
Oh, absolutely. Like we can look back in the career and say definitely should have got more push. Absolutely. Should have got better people to work with. Absolutely. Storyline. We could be doing this for hours. But anything he did though, it really was a masterpiece. Whether it was working with John Cena at WrestleMania, his work with Daniel Bryan, his work with
How
Finn
about Randy
Balor.
Orton? He had Randy
Yep.
Orton, Matt Hardy. I mean,
Mhm.
he had some really, really big
That
feuds.
what he did with Alexa Bliss, and how the shift and made her such a powerful star at that time. Like his creativity and his work, it would just it's similar. Like it's not the Undertaker level by any imagine, but it was up there. Like there was just something where you were just like, wow.
Well, the Undertaker gave him the stamp of approval at the 30th anniversary Raw. I don't think he had the resume. I mean, certainly, maybe if he would have went in here and wrestled another 15 years, maybe it would have went to that level. But certainly, I think that he did a lot that influenced a lot of wrestlers. Again, similar to a Terry Funk. I mean, I look at guys like John Moxley today. I think they're heavily influenced by a Terry Funk. You know, we think about ECW. He was ECW before ECW. I mean, Terry Funk was a guy that he may not quite be on Mount Rushmore, but in terms of his influence on wrestlers, past, present, and future, he's definitely going to be up there. And then Bray Wyatt, another guy that just unfortunately did not, like you said, have the run. I think he had, 2 cups of coffee with the world title. I mean, he just never quite had the big run that he should have had, but he certainly still, I think, did a lot. And I almost have to ask it then, does he automatically get inducted into the Hall of Fame next year?
This is what I've been thinking of. Does he get in the Hall of Fame? It's a very tough position where I think there is a spot for him, but I think you putting him in right away might not make the best of sense at this point because, again, we talk about his longevity, how his career was, the little bit of the up and down. I do think maybe not this year, maybe the year after he does go in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he should. I mean, listen, listen, this WWE Arbitrary Hall of Fame, and I'll get to comments in a second. I mean, they put guys in that really are in for political reasons or because of who they were friends with and cliques they were in with. And I think he should get in. I honestly think he should get in right away. I mean, I get your point, but I mean, at this point, I know it's kind of just so far ahead, but kind of do have to think about it. I mean, because he did do a lot. And I think that considering the caliber of class, you know, my question to you is, should he get in? And you say he should, but not right away, basically.
Yeah, I think right away. Whenever a wrestler passes away, like whether in the Hall of Fame, there's always that debate. Should he get in the Hall of Fame, whether it's WCW, ECW? There's always that debate. I feel like I go back to when Paul Bearer passed away in 2013 in March, and there was a lot of talk saying he should have been put in the Hall of Fame at that instant right before, but the Hall of Fame was a month away, and it just didn't make sense. I felt the year after they had a little bit time had passed and such, and you could do the tribute. So yeah, if they haven't identified a class yet, I do think he should be in there because I guess WrestleMania is a little bit more closer, not that far off. So you can definitely put him in there. But I think if maybe next year, not this upcoming Hall of Fame, I think definitely the year after he definitely.
Well, I think it'll be interesting because obviously they're in Philadelphia, and the whole questions are going to be as well. Is it going to be an ECW themed class? And you know, there's obviously some names from ECW that you could certainly induct. Maybe do you use this now? And let's say if you're going to do an ECW class, maybe do you induct Terry Funk a second time because he did kind of put ECW on the map. I mean, you think that's a possibility? I mean, that would be kind of a neat thing. I mean, Terry Funk did, if you think about him winning the ECW world title, that kind of put ECW on the map. That was their first pay-per-view that put them on the national footprint to where they did have some success and kind of moved away from that regional company that was only big out here. What do you think about that?
I'm just trying to think. I can't put my finger on, but when Terry Funk was inducted, I don't think he was inducted at the time as a solo wrestler. I think he was part of a tag team with
the Funks. Yeah,
so I think definitely this might be the time to put him in individually. Just all he's done, especially with ECW, the likes with Heyman and some others, Tommy Dreamer.
Tommy Dreamer, I think, is the big one because I think I know he's still an active wrestler in another company. But Tommy Dreamer, to me, is a no-brainer. I mean, ECW.
Raven, he's still guy up there you can put up.
Yeah, absolutely Raven. Shane Douglas, although I kind of know that political reasons he won't get in. But certainly Raven, I think, should definitely get in there. And TNA just put him in their Hall of Fame. And I think that Raven should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. Sure, Sandman, if you want to throw him in there, I'd be okay with him as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, if they are going down that ECW pro, definitely I think this would be the perfect time to put Terry Funk in as a 2-time Hall of Famer.
No question about that. I want to say hello to Anthony Finkel, who wants to know the cause of death of, well, Terry Funk was 79, but Bray Wyatt, I believe, had a heart attack. He recently had COVID, and he was having some symptoms with that. So certainly want to pass along to his family our thoughts and prayers. Obviously, Bo Dallas just debuted in AEW. The irony of that,
Wow.
and that was just really ironic. And then obviously JoJo, who is Mr. Wyatt's obviously other half, and his father, Iris, another guy that I was kind of like wondering, and I asked somebody this, why is he not in the Hall of Fame? His father, Mike Rotunda, a guy who's I think won 5 tag titles in the WWF, and he won the tag titles in the NWA a bunch of times and other belts. Obviously, IRS, very legendary character. But yeah, definitely, we'll have to see. And also here, somebody would like to say, who I know very well, I want to say hello forever, a Firefly. Yeah, definitely a lot of people, a lot of tributes are out there. I did a few minutes on it yesterday. I think Monday I'll probably do a few of it with Jay Gaz, the Shadow, Jay Gaz, the Greek Association World Champion. So coming over then to AEW and SmackDown, impressions on the SmackDown tribute show. I mean, I guess if this was the moment LA Knight was kind of made, maybe this was the moment, maybe getting the biggest win of his career over Finn Balor. And any impressions on SmackDown today? We saw a little bit of different things, but anything you want to add on SmackDown?
I thought SmackDown was played out perfectly on this show. It was more of a tribute show to the
Yep.
legend of Terry Funk, and and Bray Wyatt definitely liked Cody's tribute to Terry Funk. I really thought we would hear something maybe from Foley because we know definitely the relationship. Maybe they're saving that for Raw. I don't know. LA Knight, the we all go back to LA Knight Rise. We go back to that feud he had end of last year with Bray Wyatt. The
He
pitch black
mentioned it
match.
in his promo before
And
he wrestled. Yep. Talked
and
about that for
LA not
extensively.
even mentioned it, like how working with Bray Wyatt and what he did for a career. And I think it was fitting for LA Knight to get the win, to do the promo, to cut off the show because listen, everyone knew that pitch black match was so awful, and but I think Bray was probably
Well,
happy
remember
that
on air, I actually bought the Mountain Dew Pitch Black drink and tried it on the air. But that was probably the only thing I remembered about the
yeah.
match.
But I know like we've heard from the superstars, Strowman, Seth Rollins, Paul White, big otherwise known as the Big Show, John Cena, The Rock, they've all said just amazing things about Bray Wyatt and with the work he's done. And LA Knight, I think, like definitely feels that without Bray Wyatt, would the Yeah movement be as strong? Because that really started the Yeah movement, I think, right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was kind of the turning point to it. And obviously, LA Knight will see next week at Payback against The Miz, and we'll have to imagine that LA Knight will get a win. We also saw Cody Rhodes coming. Obviously, that we knew was coming because of the history between Dusty and Terry Funk. That goes back just about 50 years. And then we also saw, obviously, the Street Profits, and they had won in their match, kind of the Terry Funk tribute match. And we saw Rey Mysterio get a victory over Grayson Waller. That kind of continued what we'll see next week at Payback. So we saw a number of different things. And anything on All In for a few minutes? I mean, anything that you're expecting to see happen here, as we're going to be there, probably the biggest show now coming up in AEW history. And we also know now, it's as I think we spoke about 2 weeks ago on the air, that it's sold more tickets now than WrestleMania 32. So any minutes for a few minutes here on predictions on AEW All In?
Yeah, I was just watching Dynamite this week, and it's a little bit interesting. Like I found that some of the promos cut was a little weird. I love the work with Will Ospreay and Chris Jericho. Definitely going to
Yeah,
be
that was a really interesting build up there. Yep.
a classic. They're really looking forward to FTR and the Young Bucks just because the chemistry and how good these tag teams
Although we're not
are.
worried about some issues outside of the ring in that
No,
was.
definitely not. I do wish they did give Kenny Omega a singles match for this show. I know he's teamed with Hangman Adam Page, with Jay White and Juice Robertson and someone else. I can't Castillo, I think. Castillo and the other person with Don Cal, can't pronounce his name. Like I really felt Kenny Omega definitely, and even Hangman Adam Page, they definitely deserve, I think, a bigger type match just because what AEW has been working for and toward this moment. They've been here since day one, really building this place, even go back to 2018.
Yep.
Interesting promo last night cut by Christian with the whole dark him and who were the other person, and then I'm not And then with Darby Allin and Sting, like that was kind of interesting there. But again, some of the stuff I just feel they're mixing it up. And listen, I think this might be the end for Billy Gunn. I think how he's coming up, saying he's coming in as badass in this last match. I think Billy Gunn might be getting the end. I feel this might be for him going out in front of 80,000 fans.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that talk quite a bit about Billy Gunn. What is his future in the ring? And I mean, that's obviously a good question. He is 60 now, which is crazy to think, and obviously the shape that he's in. And Christian, obviously the rumors are out there. I have to throw it out to you about Edge. I mean, Edge pretty much actually, which is kind of a rare thing. He actually addressed it on social media and talked about the fact that he has a contract in his inbox waiting for him. And I mean, what do you make of this situation with Edge? I mean, is he AEW bound, or is this just kind of a ruse maybe, and maybe he just retires or signs one of these WWE type contracts, although he kind of turned down, I think, one contract that was put out there, but he said no, he hasn't yet turned it down. So what do you make of this whole Edge situation?
I actually watching Edge's video. I listened to the last part really stuck out to me where he said I couldn't get a better farewell than I did at SmackDown.
Yep.
How you get a better farewell in front of your hometown? You put on a classic match with Sheamus, a person you know very well. Everything was tribute for you. Like I don't think you're going to get this any better. The only reason I say he would go to AEW, I think I mentioned this a few weeks, for him to do a program with Christian.
Yeah, that's the talk. I mean, Christian, you've got the Hardys there. I mean, you have that there. Maybe there's a few other wrestlers we could see him in the ring with that he hasn't wrestled.
The Hardys, I found the Hardys are kind of Jeff with all his problems and all his demons. I really feel like there's not much you could do there. Christian is kind of on this strong singles run at this point in his career as a manager. So I really think it's really just Christian that those two really have never crossed paths in a ring.
Yeah, I mean, I really, to be honest, there's very few wrestlers that stay with one company their whole career, and I'd kind of like to see him stay in WWE, honestly. I think that means something. There's very few guys that their whole career were in one company. If you think about it, even technically The Undertaker actually was a part of the NWA/WCW for a cup of coffee. I mean, maybe Shawn Michaels would be an example of a guy that never really jumped anywhere. I mean, he would be the example that comes to mind. John Cena at the moment, The Rock. But there's very few wrestlers I could think of, Randy Orton being another, that have been with one company their entire career. So I would personally feel like he should just end it, go out on top. Maybe if he wants one more WrestleMania moment, fine. But I just don't know how he goes to AEW and can top what he's had here, because everybody goes to AEW and they've got a roster and a gluttony of these guys Tony Khan brings in, and we talk about it all the time, and they get one big moment and they don't know what to do with them afterwards.
You're absolutely right. And this isn't like Sting jumping over to WWE. The only reason Sting really jumped over to WWE was to get that big WrestleMania moment where he never did. That was pretty much it. If if WCW or Impact at the time did that, I guarantee you Sting would have probably never went over to WWE. He did because that was the only thing.
Right, and by the time he went, it was like he was so past his prime. I mean, it was like 2005 when they were talking about it originally, before he came back and signed with TNA, when they got the Spike TV. That would have really made sense. But like by the time he came in, he was already in his 50s, and it was kind of like it lost its luster.
Exactly. And then for Edge, what really has Edge had to prove? He's been a main event star. He's been the guy in the ring. He's been the attraction. He's done everything. There's really nothing for him. There's really nothing for him going to AEW. Like, what else is he going to do there?
I agree completely. To me, this is one of those, Christian, okay, fine. When he went there, it was a big pop of a moment. He certainly probably would have had in the long run more success than he would have if he would stayed in WWE. So I'll give you that much here. And, when Edge has nothing left to prove at this point, it would just be him going out on his own terms. But the question is, when is enough? And that's really what it comes down to before we get to closing thoughts here in wrestling. Guys almost never know when to end it. I mean, Flair, he's ended it so many times. I mean, Hogan, so many times is he going to come back? Austin made the comeback, and Austin was one of those guys, I'm retired, I'm out of the business, but he had the one match with KO, And I guess that would be one example of a guy, I guess, that kind of had enough. Shawn Michaels even had that horrific match, a
But
few
even
years back.
Austin's match wasn't like a regular wrestling match.
It was a brawl. It was a garbage match. It was what you call
exactly. It was
wrestling
just
terms a
more
garbage
something
match.
cool to watch. Shawn Michaels' return should never have happened.
100%. That was a payday by the government of Saudi Arabia because of the money that WWE gets. But that should have never happened. His moment should have been at WrestleMania, retired from The Undertaker. Just like Flair. Listen, Flair kept going after Shawn Michaels retired. I mean, a year and a half later, he was on the Hulkamania Australia tour, and then we saw him in TNA, and he just never stopped. I mean, some guys, just don't know when enough is enough. Unfortunately, God rest his soul, Terry Funk was one of those guys. Tommy Dreamer, we mentioned, who's still going out there. I mean, Mick Foley. I mean, how many times did Mick Foley retire?
Yeah, but even look at Tommy Dreamer done. Tommy Dreamer, he's not really an active wrestler. He's kind of in and out more.
Oh, but he's wrestling in the indies a lot. Let me tell you. No. See, the independents every weekend, Randy, because I cover a lot of wrestling. Every weekend on my roster notes, somebody tells me Tommy Dreamer is out there. He's wrestling like.
Yeah, I haven't kept tabs on Dreamer's career lately.
Like the last few years, he's probably wrestling more than he's wrestled in over a decade. Because we do a lot of independent wrestling here in Sportswire, and I kid you not, is I think probably wrestled like 60 times already this year.
Yeah, no, I have heard he's been up there still. So yeah, fully raised up. Yeah, like Taker was one of those guys you look at as well, where everyone thought he was done, and he came back, but he knew when his line was there. Well,
so. I think he was doing it where it was the 1 or 2 matches of the year, so at least I'll give him that. But I think that his run, really, even before Brock was coming up to an end, we were probably talking like at that point 2012ish. It was like, okay, it's time. I mean, he had put his body through that much. But again, wrestling, that's the $1 million question. When is enough is enough? And guys just, listen, Sting. I mean, Sting right now, it's kind of just saw him on an indie show a few weeks ago. I mean, these guys just don't know. Some guys can do it. I mean, Jeff Jarrett, looks great. I mean, he hasn't aged a bit. I mean, he's kind of a rare exception. Certainly Christian has had a good run, but, a lot of these guys just, I don't know, Randy. One more before we get to closing thoughts here. Any title changes you think at All In coming up on Sunday?
Nothing, any big title change. The only one title change that is very concerning to me is Adam Cole taking the title off MJF.
I knew you were going there.
Watching that promo with Adam Cole, how when Renee Paquette called him out, said, "What are your relationship?" He got frustrated. It kind of like a reversal where MJF becoming the face, Adam Cole become the heel. But I said this last week, both these guys need this win so badly for their career. And personally, I think moving MJF to a face where he would really build on this prick behavior, I'm better, spoiled rich guy stuff. And then I felt Adam Cole was getting a little bit momentum coming back as a face with the feud with Jericho, but it wasn't really, but near the end, it just wasn't done proper enough. So definitely, I feel whoever loses this match is going to fall, and I have a feeling it's going to be MJF.
Well, if MJF loses, he definitely falls because he loses the title. And Adam Cole, it's almost you don't believe in him as being a viable world title contender. So obviously, there's a lot on the line here. I kind of agree with you. I kind of see the roles kind of changing here a little bit. Adam Cole, I think, is the guy that kind of turns, and MJF is the one that turns the other way. But, we'll have to see. Obviously, a very, very exciting show. We've been kind of talking about it on Sportswire yesterday with some of our UK wrestlers. We did 2 spots back-to-back. We had Joshua Kemper and Dante Durden, and it's really a big deal right now in the UK. It's probably their biggest show, maybe SummerSlam 92, but I kind of think that this has actually topped it in a way in terms of just the overall feelings and everything else. So we'll have to see. We'll definitely recap it here on Sportswire next time we're on the air. So I'm going to give you the floor because I'm going to get these guys on Sportswire. They can certainly come on if they want to talk, and I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Obviously, I enjoyed the hockey fan chat with you and Neil Villapiano. Training camp is coming up here in a few weeks as now we're getting into the end of summer, and that means that hockey is going to resume, and that means that we'll be talking a little bit of that very soon. But until I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts, anything else you want to plug, share, or say, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. The only thing I'm going to close it here with, is the event on Sunday for AEW. It's a big one. Regardless,
this is huge.
Regardless whether you're a fan of the company or not, if you're a pro wrestling fan like myself, you're gonna watch it and you're gonna have your opinions, but it's something that we're finally getting a treat for so long. We're going back to the '90s where we have really some good wrestling back and forth competition, and there might be some smoother matches. There's going to be some great matches, but hey, let's enjoy this moment.
I think it's a great moment, really, for the UK because now you've seen so many big shows there, and I think it's only building to the moment of inevitability that WrestleMania will be coming to Wembley or to England at some point. I don't know if you could do Wembley in April, but there's something that they're going to do overseas because the moment is building. I think that the wrestling fans in Europe, take it from me as someone who covers the professional wrestling world there in the UK, I kind of think this is the moment and they're going toward it. But obviously, in the meantime, we're very, very excited about AEW's All In. We can follow you on Instagram and Twitter at Randy Dillon, DHILON. That is DHILLON. So make sure you follow Randy. And good to be with you, my friend, as always. Looking forward to the future. And we'll definitely recap all things All In, certainly WWE. And obviously, again, our thoughts and prayers one more time to Bray Wyatt's family and Terry Funk and to wrestling fans around the world. And in fact, our guest a few weeks ago, Fletch, the owner of XCW Shelbyville, actually went from Indiana to Kentucky just to go and buy a ticket to see the tribute tonight. So that tells you how many wrestling fans and wrestlers are impacted. So great stuff, Randy. We'll speak with you soon. And thank you as always, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good one.
All right, that was Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat, and we're going to be joined here shortly by Mr. Justin Gianelli. Justin is with us here on Sportswire. And how you doing there, Justin?
Doing pretty good. How's it going?
Pretty good, not too bad. Talking about a number of different things here. I guess where should I go to start? Well, I'm going to wait for some of these guys here. I got one guy here in Chris Bizet. I think I'm waiting on the Brute Force and Rob Maraska. I mean, I kind of want to talk football. I might because Rob's the baseball guy. I may spend a few minutes on baseball, but really don't want to spend much more than that. But we'll see. And there he is, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. I'm waiting on one more guy, but the Brute Force. How are you there, my friend?
You know, I'm in a very good mood today, Tom. My voice is fresh. I'm ready to go. Listen, I got a lot to say tonight. I guess I'll just hold it to that.
Oh, okay. Was it a lot to say in the world of football, baseball? I mean, baseball is really, I got Rob here, so I'm going to do baseball, but I'm really not going to spend 30 minutes on it. So I'm just letting you know, Rob, Mets and Yankees, I'm going to clock it by like 11 o'clock. We're going off. So.
That's all right with me.
All right, good. I'm glad because there really is not much more left to talk. But I do want to start with the New York Yankees. Obviously, the Yankees have certainly been on a tailspin. A lot has been made with them. So I'm going to go lead off here with Chris Bizet. Obviously, Chris, I was hearing you yesterday and today a little bit on the Talking Rivals show with Patrick. I know you and Patrick were there at the stadium last weekend, and that was kind of an interesting experience, maybe more so for Patrick rather than you. But I guess I have to ask a two-part question, which I'll ask some of these guys here as well. I mean, my first part of the two-part question is this going to be the first season since 1992 that the New York Yankees are going to finish under 500?
It looks that way, and I do think they will finish below 500 because right now they're just playing awful. I mean, they won tonight, but I've seen nothing actually all season that they could go on a run to make up these games to get back to above 500. So I personally don't see it. I mean, they might, but if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet that they do not finish above 500. That would be my guess.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second. I want to get the other guys' reactions, then I'm going to come to you. And I got another guy here, so we're going to certainly try to be as quick as possible. Billy McInerney, who's alive. Thought you were on a milk carton. I'm only kidding. How you doing, Billy? Nice to speak.
Good, how are you?
Good. No, it's good. No, trust me, it's good. I mean, I had Kyle Christopher who tagged me, and he's doing podcasting, and it was like, yeah, okay, you can tag me on a podcast. It's totally nothing to do with this, but that's okay. That's for another topic, another genre. But I'll come back to you on that thought, Chris, in a second. But I'm going to go to Justin next. Obviously, Yankees do get a win. They win in Tampa, but obviously, to me, the story is, as I will ask on this two-part question, will this be the first season since 1992 that the New York Yankees finish under 500?
Yeah, without a question. I mean, listen, they haven't had a winning month since May. They were 19-10, and that was actually their only winning month of the season. They were 14-14 in April. They were 11-12 in June. They were 10-15 in July, and now with tonight's win, they're 7-15 in the month of August. So I mean, what leads you to believe that they can finish, that they can make up this and finish above 500? They won tonight, great, because Garrett Cole was Garrett Cole. That's why they won. Yeah, sure, they scored some runs. I think it was 6-2 the final, but you know,
6-2.
They're still going to win the majority of the games Garrett Cole pitches, and those nights are, those nights are going to be games that the Yankees are probably going to chalk up to wins more often than not. So, it's really about the rest of the rotation. Is Luis Severino going to piggyback what he did against Washington? I'm not so sure. The rest of the rotation is an absolute mess right now. Rodon, I know, is back and healthy, but what is he at this point? He's a big question mark. And listen, the offense for the most part, they just don't hit. They don't.
No, absolutely.
They don't score enough runs. They're not a good baseball team.
Definitely not. And again, Yankees get 4 runs in the 7th and 8th innings, and they do find a way to get a rare win, 62-66. I mean, this is certainly for the first time that I can remember that the Yankees are in this spot, not even in it. And Billy, I'll go with you. Obviously, good to be with you. So I'm going to ask the same question that the guys here are going to get earlier on before you. So do the Yankees finish with their first below 500 season since 1992?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the team. The team is defeated. They look like a defeated team. This isn't. They're not in the playoff race where Aaron Judge can carry them anymore. They're just. It's like watching the Mets from like 2 months ago. Just a defeated team that can't seem to get out of their own way. Frankly, they've been other than Aaron Judge, has been a bad team for a couple of years now, and I think it's catching up to them now when Judge missed a couple of months. That is not a good team. They're not. I think you said in the offseason, if Aaron Judge didn't re-sign, they need to rebuild because they're not. They're not a playoff team, and we saw that when Judge missed time, they couldn't do anything. So it's just a fundamentally flawed roster that Brian Cashman has put together. And I think we're seeing this year. One guy can only hit you so far, and the Yankees learned that this year.
They definitely have, and we'll get to Rob Maraska. Rob, I obviously got your message, so I'll definitely will keep it to baseball here these next 25, 30 minutes. And Yankees get a win, but pretty much, again, to me, the story is really going to be one of 2 questions, which I'm going to get to you on is, will the Yankees finish 500 here and avoid their first non-500 season since way back in the time machine in 1992?
Yeah, 1992. It's funny too. That was Buck Showalter's first year as manager.
Yep.
So and now look where he is with the Mets. So that's kind of
it's kind of Buck's luck throughout his career. I mean, he gets like one great season, then he kind of goes south, and then he's out the door. And with the Yankees, it was, I think, 95 makes the playoffs. The next year, they win the World Series. He's out. Diamondbacks 2000, he was out. They win the World Series. Texas, I think he was out, and then they start to win right after that. And I mean, that's just kind of been his luck. Even the Orioles are. The Orioles are, arguably one of the best teams in baseball now, and he's been out of there a while. So that's kind of Buck's luck throughout his career. But yeah, I mean, interesting point. Yeah,
and to answer your question, I think the Yankees will finish under 500 this year. It's inevitable. It really is a 2-man show. Cole, of course, I mean, like the guy said, he's probably going to win the majority of his last starts. But when Aaron Judge, who was injured a lot this season.
Yeah, he missed a lot of games. We talked a lot about that this season.
Is the only one on the team really worth anything right now. You're not going to win. It can't be a 1-guy, 2-guy team, as we know. So, yeah, I think for the first time since 1992, the Yankees will finish under 500.
Now, the brute force, Brad Weiss, always good to be with you. Now, 1992, you weren't even a thought of at that time. And you think about that, 1992, I mean, you didn't even exist. There was no thought of a brute force. And, Billy, I think it's the same with Billy, and Justin might have just been born, and I was only a few years.
I was born in 92.
There you go. I mean, I was only a few years old. So, I mean, we got Rob and Chris, who probably remember 92 like he was
yesterday. I do, of course.
And the 4 of us kind of like have no recollection of this, which I find so fascinating. So the 4 of us are kind of seeing something we've never really seen in our lifetimes. So that's why I go right to you, the brute force, and kind of ask you the burning question that a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to be wondering on, knowing you're Mr. Confidence. Do the New York Yankees finish over 500 and avoid their first non-winning season since 1992.
Yeah, so this is pretty crazy to actually think that the Yankees are going to be a bad baseball team with their record.
They're in last
Because, like you
place.
said-
They're in last place at the end of August. The New York Yankees in last place. That's kind of hard to find.
Throughout my lifetime, I don't think I've ever recalled ever hearing that before. But to be clear, I got to agree with everybody else. But I'm not going to be as harsh. I'll be a little confident and say that they'll come close. They'll keep it close, but they will not finish over 500. I think that's pretty obvious.
Still means under 500, right? You can go 80 and 82.
I know. You see, I want it to be a little nice, all right, because they do have the Detroit Tigers coming up. So they will get some wins, hopefully, against them.
Yeah, but they played the White Sox, the Cardinals.
Tigers are playing good, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, they've played teams in the second half that they should have beat up. The Nationals, did you not see that the Nationals beat them 2 out of 3? The Rockies beat them 2 out of 3.
Well. And speaking of the Nationals, we'll get to them because they're not in last place anymore. But anyway, listen, the Nationals are a good baseball team right now. But anyway, the Yankees are not. They will finish under 500. And it's just crazy to think to me that, I'm going to talk about the Yankees team, and I'm really not going to do what most people do at this time of year and talk about Aaron Boone because he doesn't deserve it.
Well, that was my next point. We're going to get to him next. That's what I saved. That's my 2
Yeah,
points.
no, to kind of prelude into that, before you ask the question, Tom, this is not on him. I don't believe this is his fault. We'll talk about his job, but at the same time, I don't think this is his fault. I think in the end, the roster is garbage. Chris has alluded to it all year with all the issues, all the people that are not hitting, all the track records that are not being followed. There's a lot of problems here with the roster, and it points to the guy we've talked about all season in Brian Cashman. It's completely his fault. Yep. So I don't blame this on Boone, but at the same time, listen, I'm a coach. I know how this goes. You don't have success.
Listen, you went through when you played at St. Joe's. Kevin Spann, right? It may not have been Spann's fault that the team did not play well your sophomore and junior years, but they made a coaching change. Because, listen, he came in, won a lot of games the first year. Your first year at St. Joe's, you guys win a lot of games in conference late, sneak into the playoffs. The team had high expectations, but it didn't work out, and there was a coaching change. It happens.
Absolutely, and listen, that was a couple of years giving him a chance. 2 years or so. With the Yankees, they've never had a losing season, and got, like you said, since '92. So,
four out of 6 of us have no recollections of what that was like.
Right. So what I'm saying is, the fact that this is happening. I don't know if anything else the Yankees will do, but blame Boone for this, and I just don't think that it's his fault. But at the same time, we know he's not a great manager. I've said that for years. But this
we've been on the air. Some of us have been on for 4 and 5 years going on. Some of us here, and we've spoke a lot about Boone in terms of what he's done as a manager. Even though the team won a lot of games, they really have never. You really felt like we're up to the par to that record, or even a team that was a true World Series contender in that run. So if you think about it from that standpoint, those are fair points. But I will come to another comment here from our good friend, Mr. TBK. And he says here, oh, there we go. That's my mouse not working. There we go. And, man, it's a hell of a time to be an O's fan. Horrible owners, years of losing seasons. If any team deserves everything that comes their way this year, it's Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore, I think, is obviously the darlings right now of baseball. Though if you hear their owner, the owner's talking about, well, I don't know if we can spend and keep these players already. And, then they had the fight with the announcer. We spoke about that last month. You think a franchise that's finally come back from the depths of hell almost, and then you have the owner making these boneheaded comments.
But
you know what? He's being honest. I think he's being honest.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like, though, that you got a team that's kind of tasting now its best season in years, maybe even better than some of the years that Buck had. They might even be a legitimate World Series contender. They got a great roster, and then kind of these comments, they are what they are. But I will come back to you, Chris, because the brute force kind of stole a little bit of my second of 2-part questions. So obviously, if this Yankee season continues the way it goes, and we don't think they're going to make the playoffs, it's now a matter of, do they finish above 500? So what does that mean then for the fate of Aaron Boone and his job? Because, for years we've spoke about it on Sportswire, and it was almost kind of like a running joke. And we'd say, well, he's not really going to go anywhere. And, maybe people will complain about it. But now, if they go, let's say 79-83, which I think I might have heard on this show, and I think I even heard it on, obviously, Bobby Tats and Rob McDonald on the Pinstripe Chronicles. But if they do finish below 500, does that mean the Yankees are going to be looking for a new manager in the offseason?
I would think so. I mean, someone's got to take the fall for this, right? They already fired the hitting coach mid-season. Yep. So, and listen, Cashman's not going to be moved, right? He's not going to get fired. That guy's got unbelievable job security for some reason, but yeah. And everybody seems to think he's the greatest GM. So he's probably not going anywhere. So somebody's got to take the fall. Somebody's got to be the scapegoat. We've all seen it happen. And I agree. I'm not a big fan of Boone's, but I don't think it's all of his fault, obviously, because the roster was just a complete mess, right? I mean, they went the whole season without having a left fielder. They went most of the season with hoping that Josh Donaldson is going to all of a sudden turn it around and be the Josh Donaldson of 6 years ago. But that obviously didn't happen either. So with the injuries and the veterans just not producing the way they were supposed to. And listen, I look at it as it is partially his fault, obviously, because when you see guys making, stupid running mistakes every single game, like things that we would do not even do in Little League. That's how bad they are. And stuff like that, to me, goes back to coaching. So, yeah, a part of it is his fault. Not that I'm going to say it's all of his fault, but you know what? A part of it is his fault. Because, and Billy mentioned it, right? The team looks dead. The team has no life.
And, Justin put the stat 7-15 this month. They've only had 1 month above 500. I mean, that's pathetic for the Yankees.
Yeah, so a part of it you can put on the coach, He's got to get the team prepared to play, no matter what. I don't care who's hurt, who he's got on his roster. He's got to get that team prepared to play. And you know what? There's been some games that they have not looked like they've been prepared to play because they keep making ridiculous mistakes.
I even go back to the Red Sox series last week. You were there, and the Yankees were lethargic in those games. I mean, It's like Yankees Red Sox. I mean, Yankees Red Sox. No matter what the standings are, you would think that you'd have some kind of fight.
Absolutely. And I said it. Listen, I said it a couple of weeks ago. They had that 10 game run where I said, all right, if they're not at least,
got to go at least get 6. They got 4.
And they didn't. So I figured they were done then. But then coming into this series against Boston this past weekend, I said, this is where you got to see the team show life, show something. You got your biggest rival coming into your stadium. Your season is basically done, but you have a little bit of life. If you could sweep these guys and at least at least give the fans a little bit of hope, not a lot, but just a little bit. And they didn't even show up. They showed up for the last game and they still lost that game. So,
lethargic.
Yeah. I mean, even David Cohn mentioned it. He goes, he mentioned that the third game was a character game. I said the series was a character series. I mean, this shows you that the team is just done they're mailing it in now for the last month. And that falls back on the coach.
I even go back to the All-Star break, and I got a couple of comments here, which I'll put up the screen in a second. But, again, the Cardinals, I think about the Rockies series, the White Sox series. I think about all these series that the Yankees
we could go on.
I mean, listen, other than the Royals, they swept the Royals right before the Mets, and that was it. Other than that, to me, this team is done.
And here's a little side note for 1992, the last time they were below 500. 1992 in that draft, that was the year that the Yankees drafted Derek Jeter. So maybe they'll get lucky. And also that was the last year that both New York teams were in the top 10 in the draft. That drafted.
Yeah, well, obviously the Yankees have been pretty much good almost that entire run. The Mets, it's really been every 5 years on average. The Mets are good. But before I get to Justin, I want to say hello to Frankie the Villain. And he says, we're going to have to talk about that jet shirt, my boy, Packers Nation. We're going to talk football in about 15 minutes. So definitely going to do that here. And he also says, Phillies Nation. For you, the Brew Force, Phillies Nation, just clap the Cardinals. Obviously, we know secretly the Brute Force, that's your second team. Those Philadelphia Phillies, obviously, they're right there comfortably in that first wild card. And we know the Phillies are going to be back ready to defend that National League championship. So certainly the Brute Force deep down is a very, very happy man about his beloved Philadelphia Phillies. But Justin, I kind of know where you're going to go with this, but I will ask it for the intensive just kind of asking these things. Is Aaron Boone on his final days or what?
I think he knows it. Yeah, not only is he on his final days, I think he knows it. The team is just absolutely dead. They're laughing it up in the dugout. They're like Chris said, they're making base running mistakes. There's all kinds of boneheaded things you don't see from the Yankees. And
yeah,
at this point, I don't care what he's done in the last 5 seasons. This is unacceptable. And I think he's going to certainly take the fall. That's for sure. And I think the Yankees will be looking for a new manager, and I think it's for the better of the organization. Now, I really think, even though it won't happen, he's on the first year of a new 4-year deal. I really think they should get rid of Brian Cashman, but they're in a little too late.
Chris pointed out the fact that they'll never get rid of him.
They had a chance to just peacefully part ways with him last year when his contract ran out and got somebody else to run the organization, and that didn't happen. Now you're back in on a 4-year deal, and in the first year, it's an absolute disaster. And where is it getting better?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we spoke about it 2 weeks ago.
Where's the direction of the New York Yankees right now? That's one thing I don't know.
It's not going to get better. I mean, you can't plug holes into this team. I mean, it's not going to magically get better. It's not like in 2008 where you had all these free agents, all these moves you made all at once. In 2009 was the World Series win.
The biggest hope.
You don't have any of that.
Well, the biggest hope is right now you have Oswald Peraza and you have Everson Pereira up in the major leagues. Play them every day for the rest of the season, and they're either it or they're not. And
I guess you could say maybe Rodon comes back next year. You get a full year at a Judge. I mean, you hope Stanton bounces back.
But if you look at those guys' track records, they don't stay healthy.
Right.
Aaron Judge has had a couple seasons where he stayed healthy. Carlos Rodon, for the most part, except for like last year, is hurt every year. He's always hurt. It's always something. And the only person you could really rely on is Garrett Cole, because he's out there every 5 days. He's out there throwing his 7 innings, striking out 250 to 280 batters every season. And
he has an opt-out after next year.
Why did I leave?
That's right.
Where are they going?
He might want to leave.
If the team's not going to get any better, I mean, if you're
really,
him.
What really, right now, what is the direction of the New York Yankees? What is their plan?
That's why
No.
Cashman, you might look at it and say that's why Cashman might stay, because if you are going to go in some type of rebuild, I mean, that's why I don't see him leaving.
Well, that's what it is. It's going to be Pereira. It's going to be Peraza, Volpe, obviously, and then next year we're going to see Dominguez come up. Maybe Jones the following year. That's basically what it's going to be. It's going to be all these young kids coming up this year, at the end of this year now, and also next year. And like Justin said, you better hope that they all.
Where's the pitching coming from? I know you got 2 spots. I know you got 2 spots. Well, 1 spot really locked down with Cole. Contractually, you have Rodon locked down, but again, he's always injured.
Right.
It's hard
Cortez,
to really trust.
Schmidt.
It's hard to trust Cortez. You're probably never going to see Herman again. Severino's as good as gone.
He's gone.
And he sucks anyway.
I was gonna say, even I guess in the offseason, we spoke about pitchers that are out there. I mean, it's not a great class of free agents.
It's not, and how much money are the Yankees realistically going to spend? I know some money's coming off the books, like the Donaldson contract comes off the books, but realistically, how much money is coming off the books to where they're going to put that back into the team?
That's a good question.
They've been so frugal over the last couple of years. I mean, literally,
but even last year,
literally, this offseason was bringing back Aaron Judge and signing Carlos Rodon, and that's
but they spent on that. So I mean, obviously, I don't know what the answer is.
I think signing Rodon was the mistake. I thought, you know what, they could have signed Bellinger, and they could have got like 2 other veteran not
Yeah.
great pitchers, but just to fill in the rotation.
But nobody
I think they
knew
would've
that
been fine.
Bellinger was going to bounce back. I think people were kind of happy with the Rodon move at the time. We spoke about it here on the show. I mean, it's one of those, hindsight's 2020. Before I get to Billy here, Frankie wants to say, I just wanted something to watch. Still mourning over the passing of Bray Wyatt. Yeah, definitely Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt, horrible, horrible news here. Obviously spoke about that with Randy when we were on here at the beginning last night with Stud Bronson, obviously pro wrestling star and the Urban Legend heavyweight champion. At the age of 36, he passes away, and obviously all of us are impacted by that. Fletch, obviously our guest 2 weeks ago, went all the way down to Louisville just to see the tribute there at the beginning of the show on SmackDown. So definitely, Frankie, hang in there. Thoughts and prayers to all the wrestling fans impacted by Bray Wyatt. But Billy, I'm going to go to you. Then I'm going to go to Rob and kind of let Rob have a few other thoughts after that before I go to Brad, because Rob is going to run here after that. But I guess I'm going to ask you the same question. Does Aaron Boone come back next year?
I'm going to say no. I agree with Justin on a few points. They're not going to fire Cashman as much as they should. They just signed an extension. But somebody's got to take the fall for this. They can't run it back with the same leadership group next year. And like I said, I think Boone knows the clock's ticking. He's getting himself thrown out like every other game this year. That's never been him as a manager. I have to think that's, feeling that the seat getting warm, feeling the pressure. I don't even know what percentages I would put on Boone versus Cashman, because I just think it's a fundamentally flawed roster. But certainly I don't see.
But I find it ironic that this is the one time that it's not maybe Boone's fault, but in years past, Sportzwire, we've said, well, it was his fault that they didn't do this or they didn't do that on the field. I kind of find this so ironic.
He has done enough in the past to justify keeping his job through this. And then on the off chance they do fire Cashman, I think you got to let the new GM bring in the manager he wants.
Well, that's how it always goes in the NFL. We'll talk about the NFL in a few minutes to get everybody ready for the season. It's always you change the coach and the general manager, so it's kind of odd that Cashman comes back and Boone goes. But again, Cashman's been there so long.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason.
I don't know that Hal Steinbrenner is decisive enough to fire Brian Cashman, honestly.
Well, there's a loyalty issue. It's almost like with the Roonies in the NFL. I mean, Brad hates them with the Steelers.
Loyal to a fault.
Yeah,
I mean, at least like Mike Tomlin's a good coach. They've had
obviously the track record. The track record's a little different, but I mean, with Cashman, the Yankees really haven't been a World Series threat. I mean, I've heard that term thrown around.
Not since George Steinbrenner died, honestly. I mean, not consistently.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. Listen, Boone's been in the playoffs every year, his first 5 years.
I've always made that point. I mean, he's been here, 6 years, the first 4 of them in the playoffs? I mean,
he's the only manager in history to bring his team to the playoffs in his first 5 years, so.
But when have you ever really felt like this team was?
Yeah, 17 is the last time I felt like they really had a shot at winning the World Series.
Despite the two ALCS appearances in 19 and last year
you never felt like they could win those series.
You never really, you never felt.
Well, 19, I thought they could. I thought 19 they definitely could have. And then, last year they just got killed with injuries. That's what hurt them the most.
Last year they got off to an amazing start, and then they kind of tailed off. But by the time they got into the playoffs, I mean, they kind of struggled. You had Cleveland in that series.
Yeah, remember you had a 30-year lineup out last year.
True.
That's what killed them last year.
But I think the point is, even in the two LCSs, the Yankees weren't the clear favorites. I mean, I even think the 18 team was better than the 19 team, and the 18 team got bounced by Boston in the first round that year in the American League Division Series. I mean, so I think the point is that the Yankees are kind of not really.
In 19, I hate to bring it up, but that was the Astros, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, I know where you're going with that. No, it's a fair point. Before
listen, it's done, but
before I get
it
to
is
Rob,
what it is.
I want to bring up here, plain and simple, the Yankees are the prime example that throwing money at players does not put a good team out there. The humble beds should be their moniker.
There's another team that did that too, but we haven't talked about that.
Obviously, it's
that's a little worse.
Yeah, the Mets. Well, yeah, I mean the Mets and Yankees pretty much are having identical seasons at the moment. So yeah, I mean it's a fair point. But for you, Rob, obviously Aaron Boone. What do you think happens?
Yeah, I think it might be time for him to go. We spoke about this the past 6 years, basically.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much 5 years. Boone, I would say really since 2020 about Boone. Every year we go and do this song and dance, and I find it ironic that this is the year that it may not be necessarily his fault, but this might be the year that they pull the trigger.
True, and like Chris said, he has brought the Yankees to the postseason every year. So
Yeah,
I mean,
4 full years in the COVID year. So
yeah, I mean, that is something. But someone's gotta pay for this season, and you're right. It's not really his fault this time. We knew the Yankees had a bad off season, but you know what? Look what the Mets did in the offseason. And
yeah, listen, the Mets, everybody was all excited and pumped up. Everybody was ready to go. Everybody was confident. And frankly, both teams, everybody was happy. Listen, Rodon, people thought, okay, we got the number 2 guy. Judge is back. Nobody thought Judge was coming back. We're going to run it back with the team. And we thought that the Yankees would be pretty much right there and be back in the playoffs. No problem, because it's the Yankees, death taxes, and the Yankees competitive. And the Mets basically running it back with the same type of team. We upgraded. We thought Verlander over DeGrom. But basically, it didn't work out that way. For the Mets, different reasons. Maybe Diaz being hurt kind of set the stages for kind of the dominoes. Yankees, I think it was a little bit of a slower burn, but they're pretty much, in the same spot. And for you, Rob, I mean, do you want to add anything on the Mets right now? As the Bruce was kind of alluded to it, the Mets are now pretty much at the bottom of the basement here in the NL East. Not that it really matters, but again, we're in August and the Yankees and Mets are in last place. That kind of tells you the state of affairs right now in New York.
Yeah,
baseball.
both teams are in last place the last week of August. You know what? Let them stay in last place.
I don't even know if that's ever happened before in the last 40 years. I mean, I have to think that you'd have to go if it's ever happened at all. I don't even know if that's ever happened. The Yankees and Mets in the end of August both being in last place.
Yeah, it's something that we didn't think was going to happen, but it's happened. You know what? That's the way it is. Let's see what's going to happen next season. Let's see what's going to happen in the off season. So I'm just going to talk quickly about a couple of other things other than the season. Let's talk real quick about the announcement the Mets made that they're going to retire Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden's numbers. And should they do that? I'm going to give my opinion. A couple of years ago, I might have been against this. Okay. Now I saw you guys. And Chris knows about this, but you guys basically didn't see this. But I saw when Doc and Darryl came up and how exciting they were and how exciting the Mets were. And it was just unbelievable. That's when in the 80s, New York City was the Mets town. Okay, Friday nights at Shea, because I was at almost every Friday night home game at Shea Stadium. It was an event. It was packed. When Gooden was pitching, it was amazing. And then we know what happens. The Mets win the World Series in 1986, and Strawberry and Gooden have the drug problems. Okay, 2 guys who should have been on their way to the Hall of Fame, they had their problems, and they both ironically played for the Yankees and won world championships with the Yankees. Gooden pitched the no-hitter for the Yankees. That's the way it goes. Now, Darryl Strawberry has definitely cleaned up his life. He's a preacher now.
Yes, he's a motivational speaker. Yep, he's all around the world, sure.
And he's doing well. I have got to give him credit, from Major League superstar to jail to this. I have to give him credit. So,
yes,
you know what? They retired Keith Hernandez's number. He had the coke problems, we know. So, you know what? I'm not against them retiring Gooden and Strawberry. I would have been against it a couple of years ago, but I see how much Strawberry has changed his life. So, you know what? They're going to do it. I'm not totally against it. Although I think eventually they should add Gary Carter to that. And I'm not one for retiring a lot of numbers. I mean,
Yeah, really. But Gary Carter, I'm going to walk back the train a little bit on that? I know you get to closing thoughts in a second, but he only had what, 3 great seasons as a Met? I mean, to me,
if he's not on that team, the Mets do not win the World Series.
yeah, I get the symbolism of it, but I mean, I'm kind of skeptical. If you want to put him in a Mets Hall of Fame, which I know he's in, that's fine with me. But to retire his number off basically 3 seasons, I mean,
well,
But
he almost went in the Hall of Fame as a Met. He wanted to go in as a Met, but the committee made him go in as an Expo. But whatever your thoughts is, I just wanted to bring that up.
I think Gooden, to me, I think had a longer run as a Met than Strawberry. I mean,
yeah.
Gooden's like number 2 in most categories in Met history, and wins, strikeouts, and a lot of those other categories. Yeah, I guess Gooden retiring his jersey would be okay. If Strawberry, you want to retire it, fine. I mean, I kind of look at Strawberry, and Chris might kill me on this in a way similar to like John Tavares. He had those 8 great years and then kind of left. And I think that for a long time, Met fans didn't forgive Strawberry. I mean,
no, definitely did not.
It's kind of to me like John Tavares. John Tavares had 8 great years with the Islanders and left. And sure, in the grand scheme of things, he's probably a Hall of Famer in team history, but he left. And Strawberry, to me, left and his career spiraled. But if you want to retire his jersey, yeah, all right. I mean, Gooden, I probably have a little bit more of a nod for just because he had a longer track record as a Met and probably a little bit of a better career. But the point is made that they're both, should have been Hall of Famers and surefire. And
I think you have to. I think you have to, because those 2 guys, and like Rob said, I would have definitely agreed. I was going to bring up Carter too, because those guys were so key, along with Hernandez, on that 86 team. Right, with any one of those guys not being on the team, I don't know if they don't win the World Series without one of them, let alone all 4.
This is like in wrestling when we talk about wrestling, and there's certain guys that got into the WWE Hall of Fame because they had a connection to a big name and there was politics involved. But then when you watch their body of work, and they really weren't Hall of Famers. Gary Carter as a Met had 3 amazing seasons. I mean, what's next? So we're going to retire Edgardo Alfonso's jersey? Should we retire Robin Ventura's? I mean,
those guys never won World Series, though.
No, but
there's 2 guys. There's 2 guys. I'm 50-50 on Gary Carter, and I hate to be the one to say it, but you kind of sense that there's really not much urgency with him because he's unfortunately not with us anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the next lock would be obviously David Wright. But
it's too early for that though, right now.
Yeah, of course. But
did John Franco get his jersey retired? I think that would be. I think I would want to see John Franco's jersey retired over Gary Carter. I mean, I got to be honest. John Franco was the Mets captain. He was here longer. He was born in Brooklyn, grew up in the Marlboro Projects. I mean, he was a stone's throw away from Shea Stadium. I mean, for me,
that's true. I agree. I agree with you on that.
I just think Carter, to me, it's like in wrestling when we induct guys in the Hall of Fame, and they had like one run as like with a mid-card title. Gary Carter, I get the symbolicism of it, but that's for the Mets Hall of Fame, not to put
I'm not making fun of the Mets.
Rob, maybe you might know this. Has anyone worn 45 since Zach Wheeler? Because remember, Zach wore
he wore it. I don't think anyone has. I don't think anyone has since Wheeler. I don't think so.
I know the 2 prominent 45s that the Mets had were Wheeler and Pedro.
And Pedro with 45,
and Tug McGraw also.
Yes.
So then,
listen,
Coonrod is wearing it right now.
What?
Who's wearing it now?
Coonrod. Walker wore it. Yamamoto wore it. Coonrod is wearing it right now.
So they're giving it out.
Yeah. Okay.
No one calls it. And I mean, like you said, Rob, jerseys retired. That's like in St. Joe. Should we retire Brad's jersey if we had that ceremony? I mean, Brad had like
I'd be all for it.
St. Joe's. I mean, but I don't know if I would have put him and retired his jersey number. I mean, that's to me going down that road. I mean, so
no, but you got to remember too. We're talking. I'm not making fun here, but the Mets have not won a World Series since '86.
Yeah,
so you got to honor the guys that were the main guys for that team. So Strawberry, Gooden, Carter, Hernandez. I think those guys are the key guys for that team.
I get
Yeah,
that.
ring night,
but
you know.
the four out of five of us that are Met fans haven't seen the Mets win a World Series. I get that, but to me, Chris, it's like with the Islanders. Do we start retiring the Suter brothers jersey? Do we start retiring Patrick Flatley's jersey? Do we start?
No, but they
retiring...
never won anything. That's the difference.
No, but
Yeah.
the Suter brothers, I think, were on the last Stanley Cup team. I mean, do we honor
Were they on
them?
that? Yeah, but were they
do we
key
retire
guys?
Bob Bourne's jersey? I mean,
Yeah, but were they the key
This
guys
is
for
not
that
really
for
apples to
that
apples
run?
here.
No.
Doc and Darryl meant so much to the
No,
Mets.
Doc and Darryl, I'm okay with, but when I
Yeah.
go like Gary Carter, who do we go next? Bobby Ojeda, want to go Sid Fernandez?
Those guys
You know who could be a legitimate candidate? Ed Kranepool.
Well, that's because of his longevity.
Right.
But then to me, John Franco should be retired. These again, to me,
I'm
this
not
is
totally-
like exactly
listen,
like
I'm not
WWE Hall of
totally
Fame. We put
against
the
it.
Godfather in the Hall of Fame, who won
Yeah, you
one
can't be
Intercontinental
against it.
title for a month.
You can't be against it. You're
No.
honoring guys that won a World Series for you.
No,
You know, like
And Carter was a captain also. Remember that.
Yes.
But
Carter
the difference
was
is to
co-captain
me,
with Hernandez.
I'm
Right.
fine with them being in the Hall of Fame. I just don't know about if any other players shouldn't wear their jersey. See, the Yankees don't have this issue, like Chris pointed out. The Yankees have like 100 great players. The Mets, it's like, well, who do we have that was great? Seaver was great. Piazza, all right, I'll give you that. David Wright, probably in the long run.
Yep.
Maybe Kuzman. And then it's like, okay, Doc and Darryl, I'll give you Doc. Darryl, maybe. And then, like, who else did we have as all-time greats in our history? It's like not
but
that
at least
many.
Carter is a Hall of Famer, like a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. It's not like you're
And
retiring.
he wanted to go in as a Met.
But the
wanted
Mets, like,
Would
again,
you?
to
Yeah.
me-
Here's the other thing. Would you have thought of this differently if Carter went in as a Met, as a Hall of
Which he
Famer?
No, I would
My
not have.
question is, why
No,
do
it
they
wouldn't
force
matter.
that
No, I
on
would
him?
not. No. 3 years. He
Okay.
had 3 great years.
All right. Well, whatever, that was
I just
that
think,
was
again,
fun.
to me, like, it's apples and oranges. I feel like with the Mets, it's like, okay, who do we go down this road? Now, again, it's like, to me, Chris, with the Islanders, we're Islander fans, right? The Islanders haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1983. Do we induct Bob Bourne and retire his jersey? You know, the Suter brothers I mentioned.
But those guys weren't key guys in winning the cup. We
Yeah.
honored those guys that won the cup.
Yes.
Right?
Now,
Yeah.
I was there when
There's the
Tinelli.
difference.
I was
Oh,
there.
here.
with
All right.
Tinelli.
Here, go back to the Islanders. I heard an argument about honoring the guys from like the 90s, a player from the 90s, let's say Palfi, or who was the best player, like Turgeon, because the fans of the
Turgeon had-
90s, think about it,
Yeah.
a 30-year-old like yourself, you didn't see the Stanley Cup run. So
No.
your best teams were in the 90s, maybe.
We sucked in the 90s. It's really from the lockout on. That's when we were
Right.
good. I mean, the 90s were terrible. And early 2000s, we had that team.
No,
where
but a
Dewan-
team should
Dewan
honor
won all
the,
that money.
right. I'm just saying a team should honor their players from each generation. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not opposed to that. To me, like, I don't want to turn again. To me, it's like in wrestling when they induct guys to the Hall of Fame that were like in their careers, like middle of the road. To me,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not saying Carter wasn't like they shouldn't honor him, but I just look at, to me, like 3 seasons. That's all. To me, when you retire a jersey, you got to have like 8, 9, 10 years. That's why Gooden. Okay, I'm fine with Gooden. Doc, Darryl. Darryl had 8 great years. Okay, I'm fine with that even. But to me, when it's like, we're going down the road. I mean, like, who's next is my point. And Joe Dell here would like to say, before I go over to Brad, and I'll get to Rob's closing thoughts in a second because I know he wants to run. They should retire the whole 86 team, greatest baseball team ever, probably the last one we win in my lifetime. Yeah, I mean, if you want to induct them into the Hall of Fame, kind of like in wrestling a few years ago when they did the NWO of Hall, Hogan, Nash, and Six, I was fine with that. If you want to induct the Mets 86 team as the Hall of Fame and you want to retire Keith's jersey's retired,
Yep.
you're going to do Doc and Darryl. To me, what about Ron Darling? Do we retire Ron Darling's number?
No.
Ron Darling was
How
good.
about Tim Tuffle? Right?
There you go. Listen, Tim Tuffle had 7 years with the Mets. I mean, I brought up Mookie Wilson. Mookie Wilson is like the most popular player in Mets history, some would say. And he had the team record for stolen bases in a single season.
Might as well Ray Knight while we're at it.
Hey, listen,
Sid
Kevin
Fernandez.
Mitchell
He was the
is
MVP.
Kevin Mitchell available? Bobby Ojeda. That's my point. Rick Aguilera, Jesse Orozco. I mean, that's my only thing. But that's my point. It's to me, that's the point.
Hell, we're even going to honor Rafael Santana.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Is he alive even still? I'm not trying to,
Yes,
Right.
he is, and he played for the Yankees too.
That's
by the
right.
way.
Think about that for a
He's
second.
retired as a Yankee. Well, listen, I mean, well, I'm sure I'll ask Brad his thoughts on it in a second. But, Rob, I know you got to run, so I want to give you some closing thoughts. Obviously, we hope you feel better out there, and definitely, looking forward to next week with you. And I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Fire away.
Yeah, well, one quick thing: the Mets are going to Bartolo Colon's going to retire as a Met this weekend.
That's good.
So that's a good thing. And I'm looking forward to see that ceremony.
Retire his number too while we're at it.
Howard Johnson, what about
No,
him
I'm
next?
kidding.
Right? 33 times?
Retire
Hey,
his bat. We should
that
retire
home
his bat.
run, really, that home run right there. You should retire that guy's number. Anyway, it was good being back on with you guys after last week being off, and I'm looking forward to next week talking some football finally with you guys.
Yes.
So I'll have a contest coming up maybe next week for football. I'm working on it right now. So great show, guys, and I'll catch you guys next week.
All right, fair enough. Everybody can follow Rob at Rob Maraska on Facebook, Twitter at R.Maraska. Feel better, and we'll speak with you next week. And before I get to you, Brad, and I've got a bunch of comments here, so let's move the screen up now that I can do that. First, I want to get here to TBK. You can't really use the WWE Hall of Fame as a comparison. They have inductees who have never laced up a pair of boots, not relevant to the company for more than the odd appearance. Yeah, but that would be because they had in wrestling kind of an influence that is important, but the comparison is when they induct certain guys in the Hall of Fame that didn't quite have the careers that really warranted it, but because they had political connections or they were close to somebody or their family was a part of something. Case in point, like Rikishi and the Godfather, Coco Beware. We can go down that road, but I understand your point. I want to say hello to Mr. Omen Black, who I'm going to see here Thursday on the show. It'll be another war between WC, IMF, and DKW. He says he has the whole world in his hands. He also wants to go to you, the Brute Force. What's up, Brute Force? Be sure to come on next time. Yours truly is on my show featuring yours truly. Obviously, Omen and I have this back and forth. And Omen, I just saw did a live on Facebook, so maybe he just came back from a movie or something. But, Brad, I guess I'll let you answer those two things if you want to go out there before we do go to football, because I really want to talk football here for a little while. So I guess, Aaron Boone, you have some experience, as I pointed out earlier in the show about Kevin Spann. And I guess if there's a bonus, do you have a thought on Doc and Darryl and some of these other people, I guess, getting their jerseys retired by the Mets? And what's your thoughts on both?
Yeah, so I'm going to make this pretty quick because, first of all depressing topics for the most part, except for the retirement numbers, which I'll get to in a second. But to start with Aaron Boone, do I think he's going to get fired? I do think he will, and I do think that it won't be an easy process because they don't want to fire this guy. They literally hugged this guy for years. And for years, we've talked about on the show about different reasons why Aaron Boone should be gone. And I think that that's the point that Chris had made earlier in the show is that, listen, it's not Aaron Boone and the players that he deserves to go for. It's the fact that he is not a good leader of men is the reason why he needs to go. And I think we spoke about that in the past. I think we've spoken about his leadership, the way he's kind of went about it with the players.
When they were winning, we spoke about that. We were on shows with the Stripe Chronicle guys themselves here 3 years ago, and we spoke about that issue.
Yeah, so I think it's more about his voice. I don't think his voice is resonating anymore with this team. I don't think the players are happy enough playing for him anymore. I don't think he even looks that happy. And as Justin said, he knows he's going to get fired, and that's the way he's going in press conferences, going out there and saying some wild stuff.
Let me ask you, though, a side point to that. And don't tell me if you can't say it on the air. I know it's apples and oranges when you went through it with Spann, but did you have a feeling that there was going to be a change, or you really didn't know? Because with Boone, I mean, you say, you kind of, and other guys are saying the same thing. Yeah, you kind of feel it, but do you really feel it? Do you really know? I mean, you went through a coaching change. I mean, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think with Spann, the only difference was is that even down the stretch of that last season, we were actually competing and we were in games. and it looked like we still had a program that cared. But ultimately, the word program was the problem. We didn't have a lot of players on the team, and that is why
I remember that being a big issue. Yes,
that's why Span had to go, and that's why the momentum was going towards Span leaving, was because of just the roster construction of that team. And obviously, there's no general manager there. He was the general manager.
The athletic director technically is the
technically, but it was really him. But anyway, with Boone, the only difference really here is that the team isn't playing hard. The team isn't playing with urgency. The team
Justin rattled that stat off 7-15 in the month of August. I was like, really? And then they had no winning.
I watched a little bit of the game, a few nights ago against the Nationals, and they just look helpless. They just didn't look at any sort of urgency, any sort of excitement. Like it's almost like fake excitement. Like, oh, this is what we do, so we're going to do it. Not type of, oh, well, we want to win some games here. And I'll say this before I move on to the Mets. Chris Bizea, I will say this. You talked about base running errors. All right. I want to talk about a man who is the third base coach and was recently fired by the New York Mets. And that is Luis Rojas. And I think he needs to go as well because he didn't do the job as a manager at the Mets. And I quite frankly don't think he's doing a good job as Yankees third base coach either because base running mistakes, it's on the manager, but it's also on the guy who's making those decisions. And I think he's one of them that is making those decisions. So I will say that. Now to go to the Mets quickly. All right. First of all, the reason why I was in a good mood today is because the Mets are where they belong. This is where they should be, and that should be in last place. And you know what? That's where they need to stay. Rob Maraska said it, and that's what I'm going to say. This is where they belong. When you have Danny Mendick batting 6th or 7th in the lineup, and Arauz batting 8th, and LeCastro batting 9th, you deserve to be in last place, and that's where the Mets should be. And ultimately, I hope they stay there because in the end, what it proves is exactly what I've been saying for weeks. The Braves have a better future. The Phillies have a better future. The Marlins have a better future. The Nationals are showing you they have a better future.
I think the Nationals might have a better future than the Marlins. You might make the case long term.
You could say that. I mean, listen, I've been happy with the Marlins a little bit, but they've been struggling and showing me bad things. So I would say I'm a Nationals fan. I know they're not doing well, but again, they're not doing that bad with the team that they have. I think this is a really big success at what they're doing. And give credit to their manager, who is a very good manager. Deserves a lot of credit.
You know what? I think
it's a 2-year deal.
Yeah, he deserves it. I mean, this team should have been way worse than they are. And they are playing good baseball. So credit to them. The New York Mets deserve to be where they are. They stink. They're helpless. Their bullpen, I can't even name half the guys coming in anymore. The guys, it's just so depressing to know that the guys that we're bringing up from AAA are batting 100 and like Arauz is batting 104. I mean, Mendick is horrible. Like these are the guys who we're supposed to have on our AAA team to kind of supplement
a team that spent the money that they spent.
Exactly. So again, this is poor roster construction. This is poor development at the minor league level. And just to have these guys come up and embarrass themselves as badly as they have, it is very rough to watch. I don't watch it. I try not to. But, in the end,
You're busy anyway. You're on a basketball court at least,
good. I mean, because in the end, it's a waste of time to see these guys play. I mean, the fact that people are going to the game just to see Ohtani against Senga today and have to watch this garbage that they can't hit and that they're this bad. I mean, it is just a depressing topic. And in the end, I'm just so disappointed with the Mets because you can't do better than this. Like, even when you trade players, you can't find better players to come up here and actually show you something. I know.
And I feel like it's always the same. We've had the same issue as Mets fans for years.
And then people want to get hyped up about DJ Stewart, okay? And I know he's hitting okay, but, I mean, please, if you want me to get excited about DJ Stewart, I mean, please. I'm not getting excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited about Daniel Vogelbach hitting a few home runs. Where was this a couple months ago? And he still strikes out half the time.
And then he was making a point. I'm going to get to comments in a second because I do got to move when I want to get to football. And he was saying, well, I've been trying out there, and I don't worry about it. I'm playing out there. He said a couple of days ago.
So, listen, I will say this, though, Tom. I wanted to make sure I said this week as we kind of wrap up baseball talk because I don't think we could do much more. But ultimately, I do want to say that I was the only one, I believe, on this panel who did not pick the Mets to win the division. And even though I'm wrong, Even though I'm wrong, so Justin was with you. Even though I'm wrong, I will say the team that I picked is better than the Mets. All right, so even though I was wrong with the Phillies and I said the Phillies, I'm actually going to go on this show today because I talked about poor leadership with Aaron Boone and poor execution with the Mets. I'm going to go on this show and say this. I've bashed Bryce Harper for years for his leadership and the way he goes about things. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it right now. I couldn't have been more wrong about this guy. This guy's a great leader. This guy has been awesome in Philadelphia. Okay, I actually want to give him credit because of the way he acts right now.
To me, I wish after hearing this, it reminds me of when Bret Hart, it was the first moment he came to WCW, quote unquote, when Eric Bischoff had a Canadian flag. I wish right now in the backdrop I had a Philadelphia Phillies flag. It could almost, for you, Brad, roll it up there and kind of just pledge allegiance to the Philadelphia Phillies after everything that you've said about Bryce Harper for over 3.5 years. I just wish I could have that Phillies flag right there for you. We could kind of do a Phillies pledge of allegiance because, I mean, this is like hell.
Brad has finally seen the light.
You know, maybe you do actually want to show up to Philadelphia after all this time. Maybe because James D. Simone, our buddy, is now in Pennsylvania.
I will say this, Chris. You want to say I saw the light? I'm currently in the dark with the Mets, so I'm not really.
I'm with you.
I mean, we're all in the dark.
You joined the party, so
the party is going to be nonstop.
The only light, as baseball fans, that's all we could see is. The only light we have is the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm giving a player on another team credit because that's all I could do because I can't.
Hey, listen, the Phillies went off to a slow start, and here they are again, back into the postseason. Got to
give them credit. This team has been resilient, so I give the Phillies.
No, listen, the Phillies have done that, and I want to get to some comments here. I got a ton of them here before I go on to football. Omen, I wish you a lot of luck. He's got a show here coming up, I think, this weekend for one world title and another at his old stomping grounds in the IMF, which is on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666. So he's got a shot at Jordan Nets. So good luck to Omen. We'll be definitely talking about that Thursday. Frankie's got a couple of comments here. One's wrestling, one's baseball. It makes sense that they put Goldberg in the Hall of Fame before they put Undertaker in. The dead man should have been in 5+ years ago, but I think that's because he was still active, whereas Goldberg was really not. Joe Dell would like to say, good shirt, Chris. Hopefully we'll see the playoffs finally after, a decade? More than that. We're going to talk about that in 2 seconds.
We have to.
I want to say hello to my buddy in Australia, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast. I know we're supposed to do a clip at some point, but I think that's going to probably hold off till tomorrow. I'll let you know, though, afterwards. Also, things are bad for the Mets when the White Sox are doing better than you. Yeah, well, we spoke about that. Same with the Yankees. And he also wants to know.
How good are they doing? They just fired their GM and president.
Well, I guess he means in terms of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what he means, but maybe in terms of just, not even record. Baseball product. And just kind of just a real quick to put a bow on the Mets. Mets were 8 games back of a wild card going into today, only 10 games under 500. So it shows you if the Mets were a few games better that they could.
Well, you know what? They were playing some pretty good baseball up until the second game
of the Braves series.
Now they've lost 3 in a row again.
Well, that kind of shows you.
They were actually playing some pretty good baseball.
They lost 4 out of 5 now. Yeah, he was on Sunday's telecast like, well, the Mets, maybe they could make that run. And, well, they ain't making no run now. But
no.
Obviously, let's go to football. I want to spend the rest of the time here in football. And I want to go to Billy first. We haven't heard from Billy in a while. Then I'll work my way around to the rest of the group. And Billy, obviously, we're all excited about the NFL season. Obviously, I'll go with a couple of news and notes first before I get to Aaron Rodgers. I think we're all going to talk about Aaron Rodgers making his debut coming up here this weekend. But big trade here involving the Cowboys and 49ers. Trey Lance there, kind of really surprised that this trade kind of happened. And wanted to get your reactions on it and kind of an interesting trade. And did you see this one coming? And what's your opinions here on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the writing's been on the wall for a while. The 49ers are going to trade Trey Lance. He was never a great fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense. I mean, we've seen over the years, every quarterback seems to be successful in that offense except Trey Lance. I know he only played 4 games as a project, but I mean, he got outplayed by a 7th-round draft pick this year. By the last pick in the draft this year, I don't think you can bring him back after that, frankly. So it doesn't surprise me the 49ers moved on from him. Frankly, I think Sam Darnold's a much better fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense. In fact, I go as far as to say Shanahan probably wanted Darnold when he became available from the Jets.
Well, he looked good in the second half of last season with Carolina, so I'll give you that. I mean, he had some competent moments. I'll give you that.
But I don't get why the Cowboys did it. I don't get giving up a 4th round pick for a guy who is not going to see the field unless Dak Prescott gets hurt. Or I think it was a 4th round pick. I might have.
Well, I guess maybe the analogy is that you can never be sure in this league. You want to have somebody that might be there.
Guess, and here's the other question we need to throw out there. Do we trust Mike McCarthy to develop Trey Lance into a competent quarterback? I know.
I would say really no. I mean,
I know Aaron Rodgers was successful there, but I think a lot of that was in spite of Mike McCarthy and not because of him. Dak Prescott has looked markedly worse since Mike McCarthy took over.
And what are we in year 4 of Mike McCarthy now? Right, year 4
I
in
think
Dallas?
going into year 4.
Yeah.
I've never thought he was.
I mean, he's got to be in win now mode. I mean, he ain't playing Trey Lance. I mean, obviously,
and no one would with Prescott there. I don't think he's an established starter making too much money to be on the bench. So I get why I expected the 49ers to trade him. I did not expect the Cowboys to be his destination.
Fair enough here, and I'll come to you, Justin. And before I do that, Frankie's got faith in Jordan Love. I'll let that maybe lie in a couple minutes. Go back to that when we go to Rodgers. But for you, Justin, I mean, I saw you comment about it, and I think you might have been the one that brought it up. Maybe Chris did. But obviously, it's a really intriguing trade because you kind of think about it. Well, why did Trey Lance become a destination for the Cowboys? And what's your impressions on this kind of late preseason trade?
First of all, I thought the Cowboys was a weird destination for Lance.
Yep.
Like Billy said, with Prescott in the fold, making all that money, and and a very competent backup, by the way, in Cooper Rush, who really did wonders the last couple.
A couple of games and some big moments stepped up in there. Yep.
In some of the games that Dak Prescott ended up missing.
To Brad's chagrin. Remember, we spoke about Cooper Rush quite a bit. To Brad's chagrin.
In terms of Trey Lance. I think something more that we're not being told happened, because it's one thing to get beat out by Brock Purdy, right? Okay, so Brock Purdy comes in last year, Lance gets hurt, Garoppolo gets hurt, and here comes Brock Purdy. He wins a bunch of games and gets hurt in the title game. And all offseason, you could just tell that Brock Purdy was working and establishing himself as QB1. They brought in Sam Darnold because they were not sure that A, Purdy would be 100% healthy. Turns out he is. And B, something's off with the work ethic of Trey Lance. And they drafted a guy with a lot, very inexperienced, right? He played in that COVID 2020 season before the draft.
Yep.
And played one game. Right, yep. And he played at North Dakota State, and it turns out all those guys that have come from North Dakota State have flamed out. Carson Wentz was a flash in the pan. Easton Stick is sticking as a backup, basically, and then you got Trey Lance. So it's clearly not a QB factory up there, but in the games he played, obviously he didn't show them enough to warrant even staying on the roster. And with Brock Purdy in the fold, and the 49ers clearly said, we've seen enough. We believe he's our QB1, and now we have a decision to make with Trey Lance in year 3. And it's astonishing because of everything they gave up to Miami to move up to number 3. The 2021 draft class is looking mighty bad right now.
That's an understatement.
Except for Trevor Lawrence. But
all right, well, that's obvious.
But the one thing I said in our chat was, even though the Jets got Aaron Rodgers, they didn't bail on Zach Wilson. Which leads me to believe that A, the mentorship, and B, Zach Wilson is, whether he's good or not, he's working his ass off to be good. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe Zach has a good mindset and will try to be as good as he could possibly be. I don't think that's the case with Trey Lance. I think something's up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you've been in a place that's had success, a Super Bowl, 2 other championship game appearances.
And a very trusted offensive coach in Kyle Shanahan, too.
Yeah, and you move Jimmy G, obviously, who, they obviously didn't think that much of, still had a lot of success there, and they moved on.
Because he was the perfect West Coast quarterback, right? He could run the offense flawlessly. The problem with Jimmy G was he always got hurt.
Nobody ever here was big on Jimmy G. I mean, Brad would kind of laugh when I bring his name up. Billy and Chris, when he's here,
he was the perfect quarterback for this system. The problem is he always got hurt, and they could never count on him. Now they found another guy in Brock Purdy who played.
Well, I think Darnold. I give you Darnold. Definitely showed me something in the second half last year with Carolina. They were very competitive.
And to me, coming from USC, this is really the type of offense he can run. So if he's pressed into action for San Francisco over Purdy at some point because of injury struggles, who knows? If Darnold's pressed into action, I'm confident he can run the offense, and the Niners can still be really good.
I think the Niners are going to be still pretty. Everybody's pretty much has them at the top or right there in the NFC again. And to be fair, that's kind of where they've been, except for the COVID year. I mean, they've been pretty much 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl the last 4 years.
And I think Sam Darnold's the perfect quarterback for the offense. Obviously, Brock Purdy seems like a perfect quarterback for that offense. If you look, he played in more of an air raid type offense at Iowa State, but still, he's been able to run the West Coast offense with ease, and it just something didn't click with Trey Lance. That's kind of
I mean, it's going to be. We'll have to see. I mean, for you, Chris, obviously, Cowboys 49. But you think about it, right? Cowboys and 49ers are also hated rivals, and they had a long history. They played each other in the playoffs. I know it's not the same as Yankees, Red Sox in baseball, or even Yankees, Mets, or even Dodgers, Giants as well. But it's very rare that these teams trade with one another, and especially towards a young quarterback who we've talked about here on this show on Sportswire over the past few years that has been hyped up, and guys have said, yeah, Trey's going to be the guy, and Kyle wants him in, and yet they moved him. And what do you make of that, Chris?
I find it very odd too, but I think Justin's right. It's got to be something where he's not working hard enough or something like that, because he's in a perfect position, like especially now with Purdy. He can be that quarterback too.
They get McCaffrey. I mean, the team's loaded. I mean,
to me, it made no sense, but it's got to be something like that. Something didn't click there. And it made even less sense to go to Dallas, I guess. But here's the other thing. Prescott's only got 1 more year left on his deal this year and next year. So maybe they're trying to think ahead, and maybe they think this kid will work out. But,
but McCarthy, I think, is focused on he needs to win another playoff game or 2. That's the only thing I'd say to all this.
And you know what? And after this year, they're going to have to make a decision on Trey Lance, because then are they going to give him the 5th-year option, right? So that sounds
like we're in the same predicament as Frankie, which we'll get to after Brad, with Jordan Love. I mean, this is just a bizarre.
Or even with Zach Wilson, if you want to bring up Zach Wilson, right?
Well, but
after this year, they got to figure it out.
He was talking about the fact that Rodgers is there. He's trying to groom him. This is the first time he's learning. So all right, maybe I'll go along with that. Although what my eyes have seen is not very much.
No, he's gotten better. We could see he's definitely matured, and he looks like he's progressing slowly. Let's not say he's ready to take over the reins right now, but but here's the thing.
He, to me, has the perception of a guy who is working his ass off to get better. Whether it happens or not, that's different.
Right. And you know what? And next year, I still don't think they're going to give him the 5th-year option, because how are they going to carry his contract and Rodgers' contract?
They can't give him the 5th-year contract for 2 reasons. One, we're kind of hoping we don't ever see Zach Wilson on the field. We'd like to see Rodgers on the field.
Right, and exactly.
Two, if Rodgers is on the field, every week, there's every possibility he plays a 3rd year with the Jets. Yeah. He said he's in for 2, could be 3.
Well, he's 40, right? So, I mean, Brady, we just saw until 45. And, I mean, why not? I mean,
never
Rodgers
know.
Can play. I mean,
with Rodgers, you just don't know.
Listen, exactly. I mean, we've seen it in the NFL. Guys play until their 40s. And, for you, Brad, before we transition to Aaron Rodgers, because I do want to talk about that. Obviously, we're getting a primer into the NFL. And I definitely do think that we really shouldn't spend much of any time on baseball. Next, maybe if you want to talk Ohtani and the injury, fine. But other than that, very small. But I mean, kind of a bizarre trade, obviously, Brad. One of your other favorite teams, the Dallas Cowboys, obviously get a quarterback, a young quarterback, but they get one in Trey Lance from the San Francisco 49ers, which I find this so fascinating because these teams have played each other in the playoffs a couple of times of note, and especially as San Francisco has knocked Dallas out of the playoffs, right? I think the last 2 years, I find it kind of bizarre that they make a trade with one another, especially involving a young quarterback. So what did you make of this?
Oh, I love this. I love this. This makes me smile. All right, because there's a lot of elements to this. And I want to take, first of all, the approach. I want to take the Dallas Cowboys side more than the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear this, so tell me more.
Because the 49ers, listen, they clearly screwed up. All right, they gave away picks. They moved up in the draft. They draft this guy, and they get rid of him. So they clearly screwed up, and they're lucky they got Brock Purdy because then they'd be in really hot trouble right now with the way things are going. But no, I can't talk about the 49ers. Are you kidding me? I'm going to talk about the Cowboys, all right, because the Cowboys are the team that I refer to as an accident waiting to happen. All right. And what I love to see, okay, is a team that traditionally beats the Cowboys in the playoffs in recent years. Okay. Give their garbage to the garbage team with a garbage quarterback. All right, and try to, and they do it. So with that being said, this whole trade signals the Cowboys don't trust Dak Prescott. They don't believe in him. They don't trust him.
But with a quarterback who's only played 4
They don't like
games,
what they're seeing. I'm telling you right now. Dak Prescott, what has he done to make you want to trust him? And what has he done to make you want to believe in him? Because he hasn't been that good all that good lately. He is not that
playoff game last year ended Tom Brady's career. Does that motivate you at all?
No, but listen. Listen, Dak Prescott is not an elite quarterback in the NFL. He's not. He's an average quarterback at best. And I would
say a little better than average. I think that's unfair to say he's average. I think he's a little better than average. I agree with you. I wouldn't say top 4. But I think that's a little harsh to call him average.
I think he's average. I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of young, talented quarterbacks that I could say who are elite in this league now, and I could say some veteran quarterbacks are elite now. Okay, still like Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, a guy like Prescott, I mean, he's the middle of the road type guy. I mean, he's not that good. He's not that great. Okay, and listen, he has not performed under pressure, and Dallas comes with pressure. They're the Cowboys. They're worth $1 trillion for God's sake. I mean, I know not.
Well, I mean, the point we've made is that, listen, we talked about the Yankees and they've had all this success, and conversely, Dallas hasn't been to an NFC Championship game since they've won the Super Bowl.
I mean, please. I mean, everyone wants to go crazy about them, winning a playoff game last year, and listen, there's still an accident waiting to happen. They're not going to go as far. They cannot get past the top teams. Okay, I think this year they're going to be a 500 team. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I really think that Dak Prescott is a big problem, and I think the organization knows it. They don't trust him. Okay, and that's why they brought in Lance to have some sort of backup or some sort of thing that they look forward to. I think Cooper Rush they like, but I don't think they believe in Cooper Rush. I think they just know that he's a decent, competent quarterback. I do think that with Lance, they think it's a young guy who maybe they could try to develop because they know the days of Dak Prescott. This is really it. This is his last audition. And I think the audition, which has been, by the way, what has it been, like 6 or 7 years already? Ultimately has not really gone that well. And I think the Cowboys are in that situation where they don't believe in him very much anymore. And they really believe that he's either going to show it or he's not going to be out there anymore.
All right, I got some comments, and I'll move on to some other topics in the NFL because I see this is firing people up. So first I'll go with does anybody believe in Jordan Love this season for the Packers?
I do. I think he'll be solid.
He's going to be good. Yeah, I think he'll be good.
I think he'll. I haven't seen enough of him to really say anything. I mean,
exactly.
They're not that good of a team around him. I don't think they've done anything to help him. I don't think he's being set up for success, but he really has, unfortunately, one shot to show them he's the guy because he's, spent 2 or 3 years sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. So.
And what do you have? 2 starts under his belt, right?
He didn't look particularly good in either of them, which is concerning.
So, I think he's going to be good, but he's better. He better be good
Yeah.
You want to say something, Brad?
The news out of Packers camp today is that they named Sean Clifford the backup quarterback. Sean Clifford might be better for the system with Matt LaFleur.
You want to say something, Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I want to make sure I preluded this too because I'm ready to talk about them, especially the way they played tonight. But listen, the Packers and Love, they'll be okay. I mean, I think he'll play okay. But here's the thing. They're going to be behind the Detroit Lions, okay? And that team that's going to win the division. They're going to be behind the Minnesota Vikings, okay? The Bears, I mean, I don't think the Bears are that bad. I mean, they're not good, obviously.
They can score. They can score. I don't know about the defense.
So I do think that even though the Packers, like Love, will do okay, he's not going to do anything to go crazy. Like the guys said, he has to be amazing really to continue. And I don't think that's going to happen. And like I said, they're probably going to end up coming in either last or second to last in the division.
Okay, that's fair. Now I have some more comments.
I'd have to check their schedule. I'd have to check their schedule, but I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like a 6-11 kind of year for Green Bay.
Well, they were 8-9 last year, so I mean that's really not unrealistic. Frankie, by the way, also wants to say not a fan of the Jets, but I'll be rooting for Aaron throughout the season. Same with Odell Beckham. Obviously, Odell's in Baltimore, so he gives his thoughts on that. He also wants to say the only guy worse than Dak Prescott is Sam Bradford.
No.
Well, you thought I was going too far.
He also wants to say here that you need a Ravens fan on here to have a decent football conversation with. So he kind of laughs, and obviously, I feel like we've been in touch. So do message me, and maybe we'll arrange something if you want to come on to Sportzwire. That's fine.
Thank you, TBK. Thank you.
And the dude, the brute force has it absolutely right. Although I would put Dak at below average, all hype. Period.
I'd put him at average. I think he's in that kind of 15 to 18 range when it comes
to 12 to 14.
He's a little bit higher than that. I put him a little bit higher than that.
Maybe not top 10, but right outside the top 10.
He's in the middle. I'm with Billy.
I put him. I say he's a very good quarterback. That's a tick below the superstar tier.
Still got a couple playoffs
between 10 and 15. How's that?
You know what's funny? You said
that's why I like him.
I said maybe.
I wouldn't want him on my team either, but
no.
He's not
before last season. You might have before.
I mean, Tom, I gotta say this. Even though I don't know if he's particularly the more talented quarterback. Okay, I'll be honest. I'd probably rather have Geno Smith right now than Dak Prescott. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
If I were to go.
Well, I'd rather have him. I mean, at least Geno Smith has shown signs in a system. I mean, Dak Prescott doesn't know anything.
He had a better season than Dak Prescott.
Yes, I'm saying right now. Right now, I'd rather have him right now.
Well, his team definitely did.
Last season, Geno Smith had a better year than Dak Prescott. So based on that season, you might.
Right. I'm not saying he's the more skilled quarterback. I'm just saying I'd rather have him right now.
He's also probably got a better team around him too.
That's true. Although the Cowboys have a good.
I do for fun.
Okay, I wouldn't say they're great.
The message, TBK. I know we have to talk eventually on other things, and I'll definitely put you on for football talk. But I got the Packers schedule real quick before I go into some other notes. Packers kick off the season in Chicago, September 10th, 4:25. They're in one of your beloved sites, Atlanta, the next week, 1 o'clock. So that's a winnable game, right? Saints, yep. Packers home openers, the 24th, 1 o'clock. Brad, of course, our Lions play the Packers 8:15 p.m. on the 28th.
Blowout.
That's in Green Bay. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, but it'll be competitive. Packers, Raiders, October 9th. That's also another matchup. I think that's the Monday night game.
Start for the Packers. Looking at this, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, right? They could certainly beat Chicago, beat Atlanta
easily.
I think pencil them in for wins over the Raiders, Falcons, and Bears. Maybe that's 3-2, and then you got Denver. You have a bye week, then you have Denver on the 22nd, Sunday, 4:25. Minnesota, 1 o'clock on the 29th. You got the Rams, Packers on the 5th, 1 o'clock in Green Bay. Packers, Steelers, Brad, of course, our beloved Steelers on the 12th, 1 o'clock in Pittsburgh. Chargers, Packers on the 19th. 23rd, they come to us. Detroit, Thanksgiving, 12:30. Kansas City on the 3rd, 8:20 p.m. Sunday night. Giants, Packers, Monday night, 8:15. Bucks Packers 17th, 1 o'clock. Packers Panthers 24th, 1 o'clock. Packers Vikings on the 31st, and then the January 7th game they've got the Bears again. So yeah, it's not it's not a bad schedule. I mean,
They can rip off 6-7 wins.
There's a scenario where kind of like the Giants this past year, where
they maybe go 8-9.
They take advantage of a sort of weak schedule and slip into the playoffs. Looking at that, they're especially early in the season. They're even games that I have them penciled as losing. I don't see them beating the Lions. There's another team in those first 5 that I don't really see them beating. They're not.
Got New Orleans.
They're probably not beating New Orleans.
They're not unwinnable games to them.
You're in Carolina late in the year.
That's a winnable game.
The Rams are not going to be great.
You got Tampa Bay in Green Bay. You should win that game, right? Because Tampa.
I could see like
8,
9 wins, kind of hanging around playoff contention. Not that they deserve to be in the playoffs, just that schedule. Kind of like the Giants last year, the schedule is so weak.
Hey, Giants kind of were able to kind of like.
Yeah.
That narrowly were able to find a way. I mean, so I have a couple more comments here from Frankie. He also wants to say, did he just say the Lions? Yeah, the Lions last year, they finished the season red hot, and I think they're going to be very good this year as well. And Frankie also wants to say the only way the Cowgirls will ever make the playoffs is if Nick Foles went to Dallas, but that will never happen.
They do constantly make the playoffs.
I think Dallas.
No, they do make the playoffs. That's the thing. They do make it. They just don't do anything in the playoffs.
No, I think Dallas could certainly make the playoffs. I don't
see a playoff team. I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
They got the Giants to start the season Sunday night. You got the Jets the following week, 4:25. You got the Cardinals, 4:25. Should win that game. You got New England, right? Chris and Charmin were talking last week. Not too high on New England. 49ers, that'll be a fun one, right? 8 o'clock Sunday night. 49ers. Chargers and Cowboys. Chargers probably win that one. You should probably beat the Rams on the 29th. You got Cowboys, Eagles in Philly, right, on a Sunday afternoon, 4:25. Giants, Cowboys in Dallas, toss up. Cowboys, Panthers in Carolina, toss up, right? Commanders, Cowboys, you should beat Washington in Dallas. Seattle and Dallas on the 30th, 8:15. I think Dallas wins that. I'm going to give Dallas that one. Philly in Dallas on the 10th, 8:20, Sunday night.
No. I don't think they're making the playoffs.
In Buffalo, it's probably a loss, right? In Buffalo.
So
in Miami, you got Miami.
I don't think they're making it.
You got Washington
7
again.
teams to get in. The NFC is not that good.
I know.
Yeah, the NFC.
But look at that schedule. I don't see a lot of wins there.
I said it already, and I'm going to say it again. I'll actually make my prediction right now as we go through the next couple weeks. I got the Cowboys at 9-8, and that's going to be barely, close. It's going to be close.
That might be good enough.
I think NFC 9-8 gets you in.
9-8 is going to be good enough.
I want to be close though because I got the Giants right there with them.
You got a lot of toss-up games in that schedule. A lot of
I have 5 games I see them winning, but there's another 4 or 5 that I could see them winning. A
lot of toss-up games. It's a lot of toss-ups. I mean, they could go 12-5 or they can go 7-10. So if you kind of put it in the middle, 9-8.
I think they're going to go 9-8.
How about 8-1, Brad? Just to drive you crazy, right?
Don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, the Steelers are probably.
I really am hoping a team goes 8-1 this season because that's like the epitome of mediocrity and toss-ups. 8-1. That's kind of I that would be funny, but okay, we'll move on from that. I have just had a flashback. I was involved in an election where it was decided by 13 votes, which was the epitome of a toss. But 13 votes. It took 90 days to be decided almost. But that's for a different conversation, different channel. My Philly instincts kick in, so my bad if I talk about the Cowboys too much. No. Listen, reminds me of our old buddy Ray De Niro, who was a big Cowboys fan. But I mean, I guess we got the Dallas thing covered. But so Aaron Rodgers, everybody, is going to apparently appear on the field tomorrow. So we excited? We watching? I mean, I know I'll go over the Jets schedule in a second, but what do you guys think?
Definitely, man. I'm excited to see him play. He might not play more than 1 or 2 series, but I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see some of the starters because we haven't really seen them at all this, in the preseason. So
and Dalvin Cook, we'll talk about that as well. You like everybody like the Dalvin Cook signing?
That's great depth, man. Yeah. I think right now I'm worried about the wide receiver depth now without Corey Davis. I'll be honest. right? Because right after Wilson and Lazard, you know, there's you got Hardman, but Hardman to me is like a little bit better Berrios player, you know, so he's not that great. Reggie Cobb, he's okay.
Yeah,
you know, and then you got everything else is unproven, undrafted
I do think they have
guys,
a tight end depth to make up for that somewhat, though. I do
what?
like the tight end room. The tight end room, I do like.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love the
I
depth.
think you're going to see Jeremy Ruckert step up a lot, I think, this year.
I hope so.
But as you're mentioning, Tom, I'm not going to be watching. There's not a force on this earth that can give me to watch preseason football.
You know, I got to be honest with you, Billy, I really
about
appreciate that you said this because I have to admit, I think I've watched a grand total of like 4 snaps. I think it was.
No, I don't care. It's preseason.
I was at work. And
what do you got to say?
I was at work and I DVR'd Jets Browns and I ended up watching the whole thing.
There you go.
My brother I know was watching the Jet game last weekend.
I had to DVR it too, so.
But I can't get into preseason football.
I gotta say this though. I
have like 0 time, and whatever time you're dedicated to is the limit.
What I'm saying is, I would normally agree with Billy 100%, but. We just talked about the Mets and the Yankees. I mean, come on. Like,
yeah, but Jordan Liberty,
right. We really don't need to watch baseball right now.
So what I'm saying is that you're not watching the Mets and the Yankees, so you at least you watch this. This is better than the Yankees and the Mets playing on the field.
But his point is that have you really sat there so far and watched preseason football?
No,
I have.
You have the same point that he made.
No, I have for the Jets games. I have. I've watched every play.
You and Sharman cover it. You and Sharman, because
it's different for me.
Shows and cheap plug. They're on our Sportswire Radio page, sportnarium.com/player. So check them out anytime. And you and Sharman are very analytical. And I thought the point was so interesting that you and Sharman made that, you know, you guys talk about football for like a couple of hours before you even do the show. So you really cover it. I have to say, you, Chris.
You know what's a great thing to do for preseason?
Talk to me.
If you want to get into watching the game, not that you want to, but if you want to watch the game in about an hour, just DVR it, and then like with the fast forward motion on the
NFL Network. Sometimes
if you catch every
NFL
play.
Network, they'll replay like maybe like a condensed version, which is okay. But
that's cool too.
But to sit there live and and say, you know, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Frankie wanted to say goodbye. He also says, "We'll see you next week. We'll see you next week, Frankie. We'll be here at 10:00 talking football. So please join and also give me a sub if you haven't already on YouTube at Sportzwire Radio." Yeah, but listen, I watched the grand total, I think, of 4 snaps. I watched the Raiders the other day on the NFL Network. That's it. I can't. I'm with Billy. I don't know if I'm going to sit there and watch the Giants and Jets the whole thing tomorrow. I just don't. I don't know.
You can watch the whole thing. I mean, I just put that on instead of the Mets and the Yankees. I mean,
actually, believe it or not, I'm on live with 2 wrestlers tomorrow at 7:00. So maybe by the time I get off, what's the game start? 7 tomorrow. Maybe I get it back on by the 3rd quarter. It'll be 8:30. Yeah, maybe I'll watch it. Maybe.
Not for that. Not for that. I mean, listen, everybody wants to watch the game for Aaron Rodgers, and that's the whole point here, Tom Bryce. I mean. You know, all Jets fans.
Yeah, but he's not going to play 3 quarters. He's going to play.
I don't care. Listen, everybody just wants to see him play. I just want to see him on the field. I want to see him in the jersey. That's what I want to see. I want to see him in the green Jets jersey.
I haven't bought the green jersey yet.
No, but I mean, listen, but I might.
James DeSimone Jordan shoes, but yet you couldn't find a way to get an Aaron Rodgers jersey?
Listen, step by step here, Tom. All right, step by step.
They're not cheap.
Listen, and listen, that man you just mentioned just texted me about 10 minutes ago. So
by the way, I was texted by 2 coaches that actually asked about the shoes. Actually, I had 2 coaches. 2
really?
days ago. 2 coaches. I won't name the names. You'll probably know who they are. I'll tell it to you off the air. But I had 2 coaches text me and said, "What was the deal with Brad giving Jordans to James DeSimone?"
Well, they got to listen to the interview. They got to listen to the whole interview.
No, I think they did. I think they did. I think they knew about it, obviously. So I don't know if maybe you were trying to recruit them to St. Joe's. That didn't work out. He's going to Misericordia. So I mean,
is that like illegal or something? Is that okay to do? Like giving Jordan sneakers to
come to our school? Yes, it would have been, but he's already committed. So no, not really.
Is that illegal? I'm giving a kid a gift. What's so bad about that?
Whoa! I'm just saying.
Well, it's okay now because he's already committed to his school.
Oh, okay, all right.
In the process.
Yeah, no. But listen. He was texting me to kind of remind me about how he beat me one-on-one. Whatever. Listen, whatever keeps him confident, I don't care.
He's going to need it because, he's down there in Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere in the boondocks. So he's going to really need it.
Yeah, but listen, what I'm saying here, and this goes right to my point with Rodgers, is that he's been in the middle of nowhere in Green Bay. He wants to play for the first time at home at MetLife Stadium. So let's see it. Let's be excited to see it. Let's watch it. All right. I think every Jets fan wants to see him on the field. So as much as it's preseason, people will watch just to see this man, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, everybody's been flocking to Hard Knocks just to see this guy. So why not enjoy the preseason game?
Yeah, no, I think there's no question that he has put a certain light on the Jets that the Jets really haven't had in decades or, at least years. I mean, obviously, Joe Dell had pointed out the last time the Jets made the playoffs was 2010, which is almost decades ago. We're talking about almost a decade and a half ago. And Jets schedule, and I'll pull the Giants up in a second for Billy, but obviously, as I pointed out at the top, Bills and Jets start the season September 11th, 8:15. Jets in Dallas, I mentioned, New England and the Jets, although New England always has their number on the Jets. So despite whatever you may think on New England, and it'll be interesting to see if Mike White will be the quarterback against. That'll be so fascinating to me. Chiefs and Jets, that'll be 8 o'clock, 8:20 game Sunday night. Jets Broncos, rematch of last year. Also Russell Wilson. The team I find so fascinating is the Denver Broncos. Like, where do they go from here after that disappointing season last year? Eagles and Jets. That'll be a 4:25 Sunday game. Jets and Giants play this year in the regular season, October 29th, 1 o'clock. Chargers, Jets. That's a Monday night, 8:15. Jets and Raiders. Sunday night, 8:20 game in Vegas. Jets and Bills. That'll be November 19th, 4:25. Thanksgiving, the Jets play this year on Thanksgiving. That'll be
Black Friday.
Friday. I'm sorry. Friday the 24th. Correct. That's the Amazon Prime Friday game. Thank you for reminding me. 3 o'clock against Miami. That's a weird Friday thing.
Well, so question: who's going to be the quarterback for Miami that day? Mike White or Tua?
Oof.
If he's healthy, it'll be Tua.
I'll say
They
Tua.
better hope it's Tua.
I'll say
If it's
Tua.
Mike White.
I'll say Tua.
Good luck with that, guys.
Brad, your beloved Falcons come here our way, December 3rd.
I'd love to see him.
You might be there for all we know.
Smartest team in football, right?
Texans, Jets, December 10th, 1 o'clock. Jets and Dolphins, the 17th, 1 o'clock. Commanders, Jets, 1 o'clock. Jets and Browns. That'll be a Thursday night game, right? If I'm not mistaken, 8:15, and then we end the season in New England. Then I'll go over for Billy for the Giants schedule, and I'll give guys a thought or two on both schedules before we move on to closing thoughts. Giants and Cowboys kick the season off Sunday night, 8:20. Giants Cardinals. That's an odd early game, week 2, 4:05 old NFC East matchup.
Arizona's gonna be bad this year.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Giants 49ers.
Colt McCoy, I think, getting the start.
What's that?
I think Colt McCoy going to be the quarterback this year.
Probably.
Giants 49ers on the 21st, 8:15. That's a Thursday night game. Seahawks and Giants. That's an interesting matchup. October 2nd, 8:15. That's a Sunday night game, if I'm not mistaken. Monday night, actually. Monday night.
Yeah.
Apologize. Sunday in Miami, 1 o'clock. Mike White, our old friend, maybe Tua. Giants Bills. That'll be an 8:20 Sunday game. That's in Buffalo, New York's team, actually. Commanders, Giants, the 22nd, 1 o'clock. Jets, Giants, we spoke about the following week. Giants in Vegas, 4:25 Sunday game. Giants, Cowboys, 4:25 Sunday game. Giants, Commanders, 1 o'clock on the 19th. 26th, New England. Packers, Giants. That looks like a Monday night game, 8:15. Giants, Saints on the 17th, 1 o'clock. Giants, Eagles on Christmas. Giants on Christmas. That's I believe, is that a Monday night Christmas? No, it's a Monday afternoon game, I think, on Christmas. And then we have Rams, Giants on the 31st. And then on the 7th, Eagles to be determined. And I'm correct, Sunday is actually not Monday, Sunday afternoon Christmas. So just based off those schedules for both teams, how do you feel about the locals on those schedules?
I think both teams should be in the playoffs this year.
What do you say?
The Giants at 8 and 9. I got the Giants at 8 and 9.
They were 9-7-1 last year. I mean, what do you say about that, Billy?
I think they'll be around the same record last year. I think 9-8 is a possibility.
I think
Cowboys, Giants, right? Toss up.
Yeah.
Cardinals should beat Arizona.
Cardinals will win.
They're gonna lose San Francisco.
Yeah.
Giants Seahawks is a toss up. Miami toss up. Buffalo's a loss. Should beat Washington. Jets Giants is always a toss up. Locals. I think they should beat the Raiders. In Dallas.
They always play Dallas good though. They
I was
always
gonna say it's a toss up. I got that as a toss up. In Washington, I got to give the Giants a win. I think they can beat New England at home. I think they can beat Green Bay at home. In New Orleans, the Giants never really play well in New Orleans.
No, but they haven't really played there since Drew Brees retired. I wonder how they look.
I got the Eagles.
But they should be okay. They should be okay this year with Derek Carr.
I think you know what? I got them
Fine.
maybe 8 to 9 wins. I got them. I got
I
around
think
8 or 9.
I have them at 8 wins. I think they split the Cowboys series. That gives
You
them
want to go
9.
8-1 for us?
You know, I could see like that's
8-7-2.
Giants Seahawks games are always weird. Like it would not surprise me that ends in a tie.
They got 9 and 8. There's such an 8 or 9 win team, which we know in the NFL now. You could make the playoffs off that. You know,
I'm going to say 10 wins.
I also
I'm gonna
think
go 10
9 and
wins.
8. I know they were 9-7-1 last year, and 9 and 8 seems like a step back, but that schedule
I don't
last
think
year
it's a step
was
back.
so atrocious that
I don't think it's a
I
step
think
back.
9 wins against this schedule is significantly better than 9 wins last year was.
And what about for the rest of you guys? I know Justin, you said 8. What do you think, Brad, on the Giants?
Yeah, so my prediction was 9 and 8, exactly to what Billy said. I think that Saints game was giving me a tough decision there. I thought that was one of those games that could give me, like Chris said, maybe the 10th win or maybe not. You know, it was kind of one of those games late in the season that I was tough deciding with. With that being said, I already said it earlier. I said the Cowboys are going to be 9 and 8, and I did the Giants are going to be 9 and 8. And I think that could be something very interesting at the end of the year. You know, with how that's going to work, it could be a potential tie at that wild card position. So we'll see. But I do think the Giants will finish over 500 and maybe 9 and 8.
Yeah, I mean they got such a ton of toss-up games. I mean, I could easily see them winning 10, like Chris said, or I could even see them winning 7 because I look at those Seattle games, the Miami, the Dallas game, and
Even
Dallas.
the Washington games, honestly, are a toss-up if Howell is an average quarterback.
Yep.
I still think the Giants win 2 against Washington. I don't know why, but call me crazy.
I accounted for 2. When I did 8 and 9, I accounted for 2 Washington victories.
And I gotta say hello to somebody here who's actually decided to make a comment here after just we're towards the end of the show. This individual, you might have heard of him, says, "I see the Brute has an image of his idol on his screen." You know who this is, Brad?
That's right. I normally do. I always give you a shout out, John, but it's 12:03. I mean, it's nice to see you, John, but you're a little late.
Well, maybe he was, I don't know, maybe trying to follow the latest Taylor Swift concert. Maybe he was
knowing him, he's probably already like doing his predictions with all his picks already and trying to get.
Well, I'm getting excited about football. I think next week's show we'll definitely maybe run down some of our predictions on the team records and stuff like that. I think that'll be good. I think people, were commenting on that. And just, real quick then, what do you guys think on the Jets? I mean, obviously we'll talk more about it on next week's show, but do the Jets get to 10 or do the Jets kind of go at 9 also? Because they got a tough schedule to start also.
More. I think 11, 12 wins.
Wow. Okay. We're taking the real high road here. I
feel very good about the Jets this year. As long as we stay healthy.
I'm going 13-4.
There you go. See? That's what I want to hear.
Wow, we're going 13. The Jets 13. The Jets have never won 13 in the franchise.
I have a split. I have a split with Buffalo, a loss to Kansas City, a loss to Philadelphia, and a loss at Miami.
And we're beating New England. We're sweeping New England, basically.
They suck. Come on.
Yeah, they're bad
They
this
beat them
year.
twice last
I
year.
understand it's been 8 years since we beat the Patriots. Mac Jones
It's changing this year.
Mac Jones is the biggest D-bag in the NFL.
For you, Billy, what do you think the Jets do? I mean, I think 10
And
wins.
he's not a good quarterback.
No.
Yeah, I think 10 wins is reasonable. I know this isn't going to be popular saying here. Aaron Rodgers is 40, and he didn't look that good last year.
That's what I'm saying. They won 8 last year.
Maybe that was injury. Maybe
he
that
was playing with a broken
he
thumb
hated
last
being
year.
Green
Fair.
Bay.
It's fair.
But there's a scenario where he is starting to decline. He's not they'll still be better than last year because he's still better than Zach Wilson, who should never set foot in an NFL field again. The only team he's starting for is in Jersey.
I think we said that on the show last year. I think we said that.
I don't want to hear anything about, Aaron Rodgers will be a quarterback for 2 years and Wilson taking the job back. He's not. He's not. Zach Wilson, I have watched many Jets games. I've watched many bad quarterbacks. I watched Nathan Peterman play quarterback. Zach Wilson is the worst quarterback I have ever seen.
We did have some bad quarterbacks.
He is truly just awful. You watch him and you get the impression that he's never – not only has he never played football, I don't think he's ever watched football before, watching some of the things he tries to do on the football field. So I don't think Zach Wilson is the guy going forward. But Aaron Rodgers, I don't think it's likely, but there's a scenario that he is, much like Justin Verlander this year, starting to approach that washed stage of his career. I don't think it's a lock that they're a Super Bowl contender with him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the AFC is very tough. We spoke about it many times in the past. And, basically we've got Kansas City. We think Jacksonville's emerging.
Cincinnati, of course.
You got Buffalo still. What do you make of them? The Chargers.
I also see a rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers in a new situation for the first time. I think there's a chip. I think there's a chip on his shoulder. And if you kind of notice the way the season went last year, once that thumb healed, they started winning again.
They won 4 in a row. They got into the last game with the playoffs on their own. And Brad, before I get to you, I got a bunch of comments here because people were triggered. NFC is a mess. Yeah, I think the NFC is a mess.
It is a mess.
That's why I think 9 wins could probably get you comfortably in a wild card. AFC is a tough road. They're like 10 teams that are good, which is why I think 10 wins to me is realistic. And TBK says 13 and what? Shush. I understand about being optimistic, but shush. If you all somehow manage that, you best win the whole damn thing. I mean, sheesh, whatever it is, shush, sheesh. I mean, to me, I kind of think the same. I think the Jets have never won 13 games in their franchise. And before I get to you, Brad, John would like to say my sleeper in the NFC is the Saints, which I could kind of understand because the NFC South is weak. It's a weak division. You might be able to kind of
somebody's going to have to win that division. I think it's going to be New Orleans. If you we were talking about before, if we thought the Packers or the Giants were kind of playoff bound, you got to kind of look at who kind of is going to set themselves apart already. Philadelphia's going to be there. San Francisco's going to be there. In my estimation, Minnesota's absolutely going to be there.
Seattle,
yeah. Seattle.
Detroit.
I think Detroit's a playoff team.
Then it comes down to what? The Dallas, the Giants would be your
Giants, I think, are going to be in the playoffs this year.
Well,
and somebody's going to take it in the South. And listen, if you go 6-0 in your division, let's say you sweep Carolina and Atlanta.
Daniel Jones has to get better, right? I think he's going to take. He's either going to be just as good or better than last year. That's the way I look at it.
Listen, if you run the table against Carolina, Atlanta, and Tampa, you should win your division automatically. And also for you, Brad, John wants to tell you I can't give away too much info as you're taking notes. So, Brad, you got the confidence up on the screen. And why do you have confidence on the Jets?
Well, Tom Bryce, I got to just listen to Justin and Chris preach for a second. All right, and I'm going to say this, all right, because we haven't seen this word on the screen a lot because we've been through the baseball season. But it must return right now because I have confidence in the New York Jets, all right? And I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to make this team a lot better. And we talked about it last year. They won 7 games when they couldn't score a damn touchdown last year, and they should have won a lot of those games even with the incompetency of their quarterback position. Anybody, as Billy McInerney said, I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say he's the worst ever, but he is bad, Zach Wilson. He is bad. And now we have a guy who's competent, who has experience, who's been an MVP, who, as if you're watching at Hard Knocks, I mean, these guys love this man. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen Aaron Rodgers smile as much as he has now. I mean, this guy is having fun. This guy's enjoying football. He's enjoying life, okay? I think that leads all to the word that is right behind me. Confidence in the New York Jets. I got them winning 12 games. Tom Bryce going 12-5. And I do think that the main reason why I'm confident in that is because I think they're going to have a strong start to the season. I do think
the first month isn't key. That's it. If you're going to go 12,
that early season schedule will really make us see whether they can get those big numbers for the wins or not, because late in the season, listen, you mentioned the dumbest team. All right, you mentioned the dumbest team. We're gonna get them the heck out of here. All right, you mentioned some of the other teams at the end of the season that we're playing. Okay, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about how we're going to manage the beginning of the season. And I do think that the Jets are going to be ready for week 1 against the Bills. I do think they're going to come out to play. I do think they're going to beat Dallas that second week because Dallas does not know how to handle pressure. And their first home game, they'll be shivering and the Jets will be confident. Okay? And I do think that they're going to finally, as Justin said, which, by the way, I might be at that game, okay, beat the Patriots at home that third week. So if they start the season 3-0, I think confidence begins to really get high. And I do think the Jets will get to those double-digit numbers. That's why I'm confident in 12-5.
And that was my premise for why I think they can win 13 games. I do think they're going to show up and beat Buffalo in week 1, and then I believe they're just better than Dallas.
Listen, that second half of the schedule, you got Atlanta, Houston, Washington, Cleveland. I mean, these are games.
There's opportunity. Yeah,
the second half is going to be good. I think
they'll beat them, but Cleveland's going to be a good team.
Yeah, no, listen, they'll be competitive, but I don't know if they're going to get to the 13-12. I always say go safe, especially in a tough AFC. And to me, 10 wins is nothing to sneeze at. That's why I think 10 wins might put you in.
Hey, Chris,
it's going to be the best division.
I think 10-7 is a disappointment.
If the Jets make the playoffs, to me, it ain't a disappointment. With Rodgers, you got a shot. But
if they don't make the playoffs, it's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, that's why.
If they make the playoffs, Joe Douglas is fired. There's no.
I think they'll get to 10 and make the playoffs.
I don't know. Billy, I don't know. I don't know if I'll agree with that because it wasn't really his call. It was more the owner's call to get Aaron Rodgers. So if Aaron Rodgers, let's say if he doesn't come through, that's more on the owner pushing for that, right? Because they were ready to sign Carr.
Yeah,
we spoke a lot about Carr.
Remember,
listen, we spoke a lot about.
I don't know. They still
I do think that Buffalo and the Jets.
Tom, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I have to say that because I'm gonna put Chris on the spot for next week's show. All right, because he said he likes Cleveland, so I want to know if you think Cleveland's going to win the more games than Pittsburgh because that's Tom's team. I want to know if you think.
I think so. I think they will.
I'm
going to go out there. I'm going to say they will.
That whole division. We'll probably.
Yeah, it is that whole division. I can make
trouble.
But that division, literally,
if he doesn't know, they won't.
Those 4 teams might be separated by 2 games. I mean, I
can't guarantee that.
That division
that's gonna be a very, very tough AFC North this year.
That's like legitimately a narrow division.
Really good teams there.
Bottom, yeah. I mean, and also here, Brute mentioned the other day he had confidence in Corey Davis. He retired the next day. The adjective has appeared. We know what confidence means. Brad, I don't know if you heard, but I actually mentioned you in my spot with.
I did hear that. I did hear it.
Yes, you did. So I did mention you. I kind of gave you a reference on the confidence and the wrestler, another big guy, Mr. Kemper, who wrestled today in Bank Holiday Week in the UK, right before the AEW show. I kind of referenced you in the confidence, and he seemed to appreciate that sentiment. So maybe it worked for Kemper. We'll have to see if it works for the Jets. I'm skeptical. I still think they make the playoffs. I just don't know if they're going to go 13 wins. It's a very tough AFC. You got Kansas City, you got the Chargers, you got Jacksonville, you got Buffalo, you got Pittsburgh, you got Baltimore, you got Cincinnati, you got a lot of teams that Cleveland will throw in there. I mean, you got a lot of teams at Denver. I mean, who knows about Denver? I mean, do they bounce back? I mean,
is Russell Wilson going to bounce back?
What about the Raiders, the Chargers? The AFC to me is so much tougher. Whereas the NFC, it's like, and John would like to say before we move on to closing thoughts, besides the obvious Jets additions, I have seen that kid Kuntz up and close. He is a beast. So very, very good stuff there.
Yeah, he's the 4th tight end at best on that team.
Billy mentioned the tight end,
which is good. I mean, that just shows you. But
Billy mentioned that, and
he may have spot on the practice squad.
This is just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking all Fridays on the show about football. Going to giving you your thoughts on the games, the picks. The Brute Force has got the league here, and also one more comment here before I get to closing thoughts. With Burrow out for a few games, Lamar finally having weapons at wide receiver, the Browns being the Browns, and Pittsburgh taking several steps backward since Roethlisberger. Baltimore reclaims the North. I don't know about that with the Steelers.
I don't know that that's necessarily a fact that Burrow's going to miss a few games.
I actually saw reports he's likely to play week 1.
Yeah. I will say, I will say to TBK on the Steelers point, I tried this last year. It did not work, and I don't regret. Now I can't agree with you on
I
that.
think Pickett played well in the second half last season.
He
The
did.
They haven't
defense was
declined
good.
that much. They've
I
got
think Pittsburgh's going to be where they've been the last few years, around 9-7 or 9-7-1, and that's where they always are.
They might still be the worst team in that division.
But he said several steps backwards. I don't know about
I
that.
don't think they did. I think Kenny Pickett played really well in the second half last
I
year. They
tried
won a lot
last
of-
year. Didn't work.
I don't know. Now, if you
They're
told
still a
me-
9-ish win team, right? 10 wins, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I would say 9.
That whole division, you could say, is going to win.
Listen,
I mean, they can't, but
anywhere between 8. I think those 4 teams are anywhere between 8 and 11. That's what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And John thinks the Bengals will win the North.
I
I
think so.
as
Yeah.
long as Joe Burrow starts week 1, yeah, I'm all for it.
I think it's Cincinnati
Who's the king?
1, and then Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Maybe flip a coin.
I don't
Maybe.
trust Lamar Jackson to stay healthy.
Well, we're going to find out. He obviously, TBK is very confident on that. We'll have to certainly find out. Obviously, a lot to talk about. This is what you're going to get here Friday nights on the show. We're going to be talking all NFL, all related to the games. Really, really excited about that. The season is upon us. We are less than 2 weeks away now, 12 days till the start of the season. So a lot to get into here. We're going to do that. Brad's got his league. Well, I'm sure I'll pick some of these things, also get more into that, take a look at it as we get closer to the season, as well as the rest of the guys, and invite you to join that league as well if you want to do that. If you're not already, follow us here. We're on YouTube at Sportswire Radio. Also, the Brew Force is on Instagram at BWeiss20, and you can join the league and get those details as well. But let's get to closing thoughts here. We're running late on the show. And Billy, I'm going to you first. I want to give you some closing thoughts here. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on, everyone. Great show as always. Socials, you can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. Not going to be calling it X because that's stupid. So get you on Twitter. For closing thoughts, I just want to talk a little bit about the Giants getting Isaiah Simmons. I think that's a great move for them. I mean, this is a guy, 105 tackles in 2021, 99 last year, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 4 sacks. Yeah, I felt like he was never a great fit on the Cardinals, but I do think that Wink Martindale is someone who can really unlock him and use him. You look Julian Love really thrived in that kind of safety linebacker hybrid role last year. I think Isaiah Simmons is much better suited to play that role. So I think he's going to have a big impact on this Giants defense. I'm excited to see what he can do once he settles in and, learns the playbook and all that. So that's what I'll close with.
Oh, good stuff there. And also, before we go to Justin, John would like to say his division winners are the Bills, which I kind of think Buffalo still has the edge until proven otherwise.
Yeah, maybe.
Cincinnati, Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville, a lot of people are going to be very high on in the South, especially with the Titans and Houston kind of still rebuilding, and those kind of make a lot of sense. What's that?
San Diego, SD, is that what he said?
What was this, 1984?
He meant the Los Angeles Chargers.
Are going to be the Chargers.
He must be thinking of Anastasia Riznia, one of our listeners from California. You still might refer to them too, but
I don't know about the Chargers.
They're going to be the Chargers. They're not
The
winning.
Chargers always charger, right? They always figure out a way to.
You're saying, John?
I have one clear message for you. You best stop doubting Patrick Mahomes.
Well, you know what?
Listen, if last year was not enough,
his opinion. He's allowed to have his opinion, and maybe that's what he thinks. And
Mahomes won the Super Bowl on one leg. Imagine how he's going to do this shit with two.
And it was the year it was the year everybody thought Kansas City might take a step back because remember last offseason, everyone's like, "Oh, Las Vegas got better. They got Devontae Adams. The Chargers got better. The Broncos got Russell Wilson. And here's the Chiefs." Being the Chiefs.
Well, I listen.
And they lost. And they lost. What's his name too?
Tyreek Hill. They traded away Tyreek Hill.
They should take a step back. Nope.
Not even close.
I think the Chargers. We're gonna see though if they've learned from the loss last year to overcome that. That's what we'll see. We'll have to find out.
The head coach, he still is.
Look, I think Jacksonville is the easiest one of the 4 because I look at that division: Houston, Tennessee, and the Colts. I mean, you should win it. You win 9, you might win that division by 3. I mean, that's just, those 3 teams are just.
I could make a small case for Tennessee, but it is Jacksonville to be the favorite.
I think Jacksonville to me wins that by at least 2 games, at least 2. But we'll see. Justin, I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything that you'd like to plug, share, or say? The floor is most certainly yours, and fire away.
All right, Tom. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm going to talk about the whole Shohei Ohtani situation because, just 2 months before free agency, he's got the torn UCL. What does that do? How does that impact A, how much money he's getting, and B, the teams that get involved for him? He's probably just going to be a strict DH next year, where he gets the surgery in the offseason, and he's a strict DH for 1 year, and then hopefully he's back pitching by 2025. But this whole situation is now changed. Does it mean he stays in Anaheim? I don't know about that because the way they continue to just fail, and the fact that Mike Trout can't stay on the field yet again. I don't know. I mean, the Dodgers, I know, have been heavy rumored on him, and I think that they're saving up for him because they didn't really spend a lot this offseason. Didn't really spend much at the deadline, even though they got a couple of pieces, like Lance Lynn, who got the win for them today against Boston. They got Joe Kelly as well. They made some nice moves, got Kike Hernandez back. And that's another team I want to talk about, in my closing thoughts is the LA Dodgers. A lot of us kind of thought that they were going to take a step back this year.
Yeah, we were all high on the Padres.
Thought maybe San Diego would take the division. Here's San Diego flailing. Arizona had the division for most of the first half of the year, but here are the Dodgers, 20-3 in August, and guess what? On a freight train to another 100-win season,
and win it by division by what, 15, 16
Oh,
games?
they're in cruise control right now. They're, it's death taxes and the Dodgers winning the freaking division. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I think the Dodgers are still going to be a great team, even without. You know
what? For the first time, for the first time this year, I came into the season with legitimate
beat the
questions
Dodgers
about how
last
good they
year.
really
They
are.
had the roster. They had this firepower, the names, and I mean,
But you know what? The pitching had always concerned me, and it still does because their pitching is not great. Tony Gonsolin's hurt, and he's been terrible this year. Julio Urias has not been great. Kershaw's back off the IL, and he's looked good, so that's good for them. I think Lance Lynn's a big X factor because he's been good since coming over from the White Sox. But I came into the season and I'm like, wow, the Dodgers actually might only be like an 87, 88 win team this year. They're not.
Like
the roster does not look
months.
that great. They lose. You lose Trey Turner in the offseason, right? And you have your young stud prospect Gavin Lux ready to take the reins. Torn ACL in spring training. And so they've been mixing and matching at shortstop. Miguel Rojas has played a lot of shortstop. Miguel Vargas has played a lot of third base, right? A lot of unsung hero guys. Who's this James Outman guy replacing Cody Bellinger in center field? Well, guess what? Outman's every bit as good defensively. The bat's not really there, but he's every bit as good defensively. You obviously got Mookie playing all over the place between shortstop, second base, right field, you name it. What a special night he had, going back to Boston for the first time tonight. You got a standing ovation as he should. It's not his fault that the ownership said cheap out and not pay him. But I was like, wow, the Dodgers might not be great this year. Well, here they are yet again, a prohibitive favorite in the National League. I still think the Braves are better, but a prohibitive favorite yet again for the World Series. They're literally the train that keeps on chugging.
No, they definitely are, and there's no question that the Dodgers, again, it's every year, and they're going away to win it. And before I get to you, Chris, and great stuff as always, Justin, John would like to say he's got the Eagles, the Lions, the 49ers, and the Saints. I think most of us.
I'm 3 or 4. I'm 3 or 4 with him.
You like Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I like Minnesota. I just like Minnesota a little bit better. I do think Detroit's an absolute contender for the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I still like Minnesota a little bit better.
I think that's a fair discussion. I think that's certainly we can definitely talk about that on next week's show when we do NFL here. And for you, Chris, I want to give you the floor, then give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? I'm going to play the Liftoff Jets show this weekend because I'm live tomorrow and I might be live Sunday, so I'll have to figure out my details. I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I know I'm live tomorrow, so I'll play it probably after I'm off the air while I'm watching maybe Aaron Rodgers or maybe if you left after you left the field. So I give you the floor. Great stuff as always, my friend. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Everything. Thank you, guys. Great show as always. I think Ohtani's still going to get a big deal, right? Because he's still a monster hitter, right? Even at worst, he's still a great hitter. Yeah. So I think he's still going to get at least what Judge got. Judge got what, $40 million a year? I think Ohtani's going to get at least that. You know, you throw in a little bit of pitching, he's still going to get $40 million a year at least. So the 400, I just don't think he's going to get the ridiculous contract that everybody thought maybe 500 million, 600, you know, that numbers, those might be a little bit out of reach, right? So, but he's still going to get it. And listen, if it gets to the point where he can't pitch anymore, the guy is not going to be just a DH. He could play the outfield. He played that in Japan, right? So I don't think he's going to be just a DH. So that's that. So
he's also freakishly fast.
Right, exactly. So we're not talking about Stanton here. You know, we're talking about a great hitter and he can actually play the field and run. Stanton can run.
No, Stanton, listen, he's one thing, all or nothing at this point. So
well, Fritz, he runs better than Vogelback. That's all you got.
I don't know. I don't
know. I'd actually kind of give Vogel. Did you not see that play a couple of weeks ago? Him going from second to home.
I did, but I still.
I'd love to see a race.
That'd be a great race. I would say that'd be a good race. Be a good
Instead
race.
of seeing that guy, the frozen guy,
right?
The freeze in Atlanta.
Yeah. Instead of that, see Stanton and Vogelbach running. I want to see that race. So, but thank you guys. On Liftoff, we're going to be doing a football preview this week, so we'll kind of preview the.
Is that the one I'm getting tomorrow? Is that the one I'm playing? Is that the next?
No. That one. This one was just talking about the preseason still and what happened this week.
But next week you'll have a preview.
Yeah, next week definitely. Probably Wednesday. Our usual day. I only got it earlier because I had to bring up my daughter.
I saw it. Congratulations to your daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't an easy day, but Yeah,
it's a tough day. We actually kind of went through it as a joke with James DeSimone. We interviewed him, and he went to college like 2 days later. He went to Misericordia College in Pennsylvania, which I'm still amazed I can even pronunciate this school's name.
Doing a good job. Yeah.
James did say I would get it right, and I kind of joked it would take me a while, but I finally figured out this kid's college. He picks like this college again. We would have rather have had him go to St. Joe's, easy name for us, but he picks Misericordia College, and I'm still trying to figure out this college. So I can imagine what you're going through.
What division is it? 3, 2?
Yeah, Division 3. It
is.
Division
3. That's what my daughter's into. It's Oneonta.
Oh, Oneonta. I know Oneonta. We know it very well. We definitely we've covered Oneonta. That's a good college.
The Red Dragons.
Yes, and it's also big for baseball. Oneonta up there, very big. We know that school very, very well. We've covered the conference, so we know Oneonta very well. So that's congratulations to it. It's a very, very good school, very good conference up there. Very good conference.
I love it. Yeah, we went up there. It's a great campus, great college.
Yep.
So
that's a really nice area. You go up in there, it's kind of like. Wouldn't quite say it's the Hudson Valley. It's the Southern Tier. It's the Southern Tier is where they call that up there. All the. Like it's Binghamton, it's Cortland. They call it the Southern Tier.
Right next to Cooperstown. It's like the next town over. So
it's in the Southern Tier. It's just a really small town America. You would never know you're in New York. You're in small town America.
No, it doesn't feel like New York.
No, I tell people all the time. I say, no, listen, New York City, you hear, but really the rest of the state, it's like small town, middle America, and great stuff there. Congratulations to your daughter.
Thank you.
And before I get to the brute force, Lance for a 4th round pick is worth a shot. And as far as love is concerned, train wreck in Wisconsin. Sounds like a train wreck in Wisconsin. Sounds like
no
Thursday
confidence.
Show. Yeah, well, that sounds like Thursday show. We have the wrestlers come back on because WC is in Wisconsin. I'm sure that'll rile those guys up. But the brute force, we didn't save the best for last, but we saved the biggest for last. As I'm sure you have a lot to say in your closing thoughts this week. I'm certainly looking forward to what you have to say. And anything you want to plug, anything you want to say. Obviously, we had a lot of people watch what we had to say with James on Instagram. Had a few people, some new people. Check us out on YouTube from that as well. Remains to be seen if they'll be allowed or prohibitively allowed to come onto Sportswire. But that is, schools will kind of sort that self up for them. But I turn it over to you, Brad Weiss. You certainly know the drill at this point by now, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for another great week of the show. Thank you, Justin, Quick, Chris, and Billy, as well as, of course, Randy Dillon, who was on earlier. So thank you for another great week of the show. Social media, first, find me, Bradley Weiss, on Facebook, at BradWeiss20, on Twitter /X, and on Instagram at BWeiss20 and at Coach Brad Weiss. So first, I want to talk about this, and this will just kind of conclude everything I've said about the Mets. Okay, I was actually asked by not one, but two individuals to get free tickets to today's game and tomorrow's game. Two people offered me those tickets, and I said no, because you have to pay me to go see them right now.
Today the weather was inconsistent. Tomorrow's supposed to be 85. You could go tomorrow just for the
Oh,
free
hell
ticket.
no. Please,
Where was the seat? Well, where was the
I
seat?
got better things to do with my life, and I got better teams to watch. And that's exactly going to my next point, which is the New York Liberty, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't heard of them, okay, they are the best team in New York. They are the women's WNBA team. What an amazing comeback they had last night. They had no business winning against Connecticut on the road. They were down 20. They looked hopeless. But unlike the Mets and Yankees, who just give up and look like trash, they came back, they fought back, they got lucky in the final minutes, got it to overtime, and won the game. So this team is incredible. I'll be watching them tomorrow night. And then next Friday, Tom, I will be at the Barclays Center over in I'm not even looking. I'm going to be at the Barclays Center next Friday night for Liberty and Connecticut again, which is a big game for both teams. So I'll be a little late into the show. So I'll get here as early as I can.
Is that a 7 o'clock game?
It's 8 o'clock, but I should be able to get back here by, 10:30, 11.
I'm almost intrigued to go, but I have a wrestling spot at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm kind of almost like.
Well, I'll say this, Tom. I'll say this because I feel if you want to talk about confidence, okay, I feel really confident that I'm going to be seeing a lot of playoff games at the Barclays Center this year for the New York Liberty, and I'm confident in that. So that's starting up September 13th. The Liberty will start playing their first round games. And again, this is a team that has championship aspirations, unlike a lot of the teams that we're talking about. So I am really excited for that, as well as a lot of other things. Tomorrow we'll be working with the Long Island Nets. Tomorrow morning in Roslyn, we have a clinic. The Long Island Nets are schedules coming out as well, so I'm excited to see what they're going to do this year after a promising season last year, even though they got a new coach again because the former coach is now with Brooklyn. But I will say that I'm excited for their season as well and what they're going to do. And then soon enough, as we continue to talk football, we got the Pick'em League set up. Everybody's in. I'm ready to go with that. We have picks have to be in before every Thursday night game. I'll get over more of those rules soon. But again, looking forward to that. Looking forward to fantasy football as well. Looking forward to some other things. But certainly looking forward to the end of the Major League Baseball season, which hopefully should be soon.
Yeah, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. I spoke to somebody 2 days ago, a guy Freddie Marcucci, who years ago I interviewed, and I asked him. He's a Yankee fan. He's actually even older than Rob Moroska. He has to be like 72-ish. And I said to him, Fred, you've been a baseball fan all your life with the Mets and Yankees. Is this the worst season? You've seen worse. He goes, nope. This is the worst baseball season I've seen in my lifetime in New York. So that tells you guys it's got to be about 72-ish, 73. So
for sure. So also I was at Level Up LI camp this week. We have another week next week as we get ready for fall winter tryouts. So be sure to follow us at levelup_LI. So thank you guys for another great week. Excited for next week. I'll get here as soon as possible. But
no worries. I can certainly appreciate that.
I do have to go support New York's best team, the Liberty.
And I tell you what, playoff game, we'll definitely go together to a playoff game. That definitely.
I'm going. I don't care. I'll find a way to get there.
We'll definitely make that happen. And obviously great stuff there. And also great work, obviously, with the Long Island Level Up, also the Long Island Nets, obviously. You do a lot of great work with them, and we're getting ready for high school basketball season down the road, which means St. Joe's is starting. I also want to give a big shout-out to our Five-Town Sound men's and women's soccer coaches, Jason Facina, of course, and Jeff Litwin. Obviously, they're getting ready to start their season next weekend. So the guys and girls are getting ready to take the field. They're going to have a lot of coverage, obviously, the athletics program at Five Towns. We have basketball season right around the corner. Our old friend Corey Jakes just had a big recruit to the team, and Coach Jackson, you know very well. So they were getting really excited about Five Towns. John Jay actually just started. In fact, Five Towns just beat John Jay in men's soccer in a scrimmage game, basically. So that tells you how far Five Towns has come. So congratulations to Coach Facina, obviously Coach Litwin as well. Had a great conversation with both of them. In fact, they had media day this past week, Brad, and I would have loved to have been there, but unfortunately, up until really like before we went on the air, I've had a stomach virus for like days I couldn't shake. So unfortunately, it kind of prohibited me of being there. But obviously, we're going to talk about the team anyway during the season. So I think we'll have the runs of Five Towns covered instead of me having the runs this past week. We'll have a runs of coverage with Coach Facina and Coach Whitwin. Please follow them at 5towns_sound on Instagram, FTC men's soccer and women's soccer on Instagram as well. And before I get to closing thoughts here, John would like to say, if anyone wants to find me, I'm available on the Eric's page. That was great. And Anthony Finkel is drunk somewhere. He's probably drunk and high somewhere in Florida, knowing Anthony Finkel, probably petting in an alligator. It'd almost be like what I just saw last week in Meg 2. If Anthony Finkel isn't too careful, he could be petting one of those sharks that Jason Tatum is trying to kill in Meg 2. So obviously, no, we're all kidding aside. I love Finkel. Finkel is probably in Florida. Yep, he's probably going to be in Florida these next couple of weekends because this is it pretty much. This is the last few weekends of summer. So yeah, he's definitely partying somewhere, that I can assure you. It's either Florida or DC, knowing him. But great stuff. I want to thank everybody that is tuned in here on Sportswire Radio. I want to thank all the new subscribers. Have over 300 plus subscribers on YouTube. A lot of new people the last couple of months. So the change from Facebook to YouTube, I think, is slowly but surely paying off thanks to a lot of our wrestlers. A lot of our wrestlers really coming through for us at 20 plus subscribers that have joined the page in the last, I think, 2 weeks. So that's really good news. So have more wrestling coverage starting tomorrow night with Dylan Andrews and ADT from the Alliance Wrestling League. Also going to be back here Monday with 2 spots, Justin Parsley and Jay Gaz, the Greek Wrestling Association champion. I'll be back here also Wednesday with the Big Cheese, and then we'll have Thursday IMF, WCE, DKW, Friday Davey Blaze from all the way in Scotland, who's going to be in Denmark. So great stuff there. Thanks to all those wrestlers. But if you're on sportnarium.com/player, you're going back to your regularly scheduled program, which will be music throughout the night, maybe some talk, maybe your podcast or two, Chris, and some others. But in the meantime, I'll be back on YouTube and Twitter tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And John will be at the game tomorrow. So thank you, John, for that. Definitely give us an update on that. Look forward to you being out there again. And also you being with us here for all of our NFL shows starting next Friday with a little after 10 o'clock here. We join with Billy McInerney, Justin Gianelli, Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, and the brute force Brad Weiss, who does many basketball spots with us. I'm sure we'll have more of those coming up. He is also the man behind the Plainview Boys JV basketball team at the high school level. He also works with the Level Up basketball organization. Certainly he's missing his buddy and our buddy James D. Simone also does some work with the Long Island Nets. He's 27th all time in the SJLI men's basketball history and rebounds, near the top of the list all time in block shots. And he still has that poster hanging up for what reasons? I have no idea why. I'm only goofing. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the man behind Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling. And thank you, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. I want to thank again John Gonzalez, Anthony Finkel, Randy Dillon, Rob Maraska, also TBK, Frankie Dillon, everybody else that's joined us here on Sportswire Radio. Thank you.